Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to a brand new week of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and we are getting into some serious UFO talk. Courtney Marchesani is here. She is an experiencer. She is very involved behind the scenes within the UFO story. It'll be your second time meeting her on Spaced Out Radio. We are in for a real treat tonight. Dirty Filth is here as well with another nightly cartoon. And remember, 1 week from now, I am on holidays. We are going to be going dark those nights for a few nights so I can actually take my first vacation in 12 years and get out of the forest fire smoke. But we're doing all right. My voice is killing me from the smoke that's around here. Don't worry, there's no forest fires in my area. This is all moving up from 4 hours south of me. So let's get right to it. Yeah, let's say hello to our great audience tonight. Where are we here? We got Race Fan in the gold medal position. Trucker Andrew with a silver. Laura Lobbs with a bronze medal. Hi, Robert Lamoth and Jetty White Bear. Michael Morris, how you doing, buddy? Missouri Man, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Roy Boy, Raymond L., how you doing? Debster, what's going on? Les Paul Holland. Stephanie Kenny Blankenship. D. Cypher, thank you for all coming on in. Nancy Thames is here. Nancy Thames will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Sapphire Elf, Long Island Bigfoot. Good to see you both. Kevin, how you doing? There's little Timmy Senor. He's not ready yet, but he'll be on later on. Kathy Evans, thank you for coming on in. JSCO, our favorite Marine, Black Dragon. Nicole Perral, how are you? Susan Alloway, nice to see you. Pink Volo, good to have you back. W. Decker is back. W. Decker will be signing autographs after the show as well. Light up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Hi, Mark Sanchez. How's your Hawaiian shirt tonight? No Name Brand, how are you? And, excuse me, you're going to hear me coughing all night long, guys. I apologize. Lars Janssen wearing Peter Klima's old number 85. Well, starting at left wing from Stockholm, Sweden. All right, continuing on here, Noble Patrick. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Paramarv, thanks for coming on in. And who else do we have here? Hi, Nikki in Seattle. Pam Harris, thank you for joining us. Jessica S. And who else do we got here? Paula Foss, welcome. And Paranormal Pixie. Double Don Philly, welcome to SOR chat. Android, nice to see you. Christine Lynn, Welsh Hammer, Vash the Impaler, Nick Adkins, good to have you all here. All right. Lacey Blue, good to have you back. Parasolo, and who else is here? Dirty Filth. Dirty Filth. The Ferret, nice to see you. W. Decker, thank you for kicking off the super chat tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very much for your nightly support. We love you, man. Jack Clark on the rocks. Good to see you, Mr. Cowley and Richard Minnick. Oob to Joe's Maine. You've got a hoarse voice, too. Jenny White Bear. I will make it through the show. Trust me. All right, there we go. Sandrick and Kay, nice to see you. Anna, thanks for coming on in. Debster and Marcy Brock, welcome to SOR Chat. Debster, thank you so much for the super chat. Very much appreciate it. Like I said, I'm going to be coughing all night. I will try and mute as much as possible. I'm going to, for the sake of my voice, just take a couple seconds here. Right. Of course, everything's going to fall right beforehand, right? All right. I will say hello to the rest of you in the chat room. And we're going to get going here in about 5 seconds. Stay tuned. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us, please, at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Got a great show for you tonight. We are going to kick things off talking UFOs, disclosure. Courtney Marchesani is here from an experiential point of view. She looks at the science and the experience are all in one. We're going to have her here. Then in hour number 3, Steve Stockton is back with another great story from Among the Missing. And of course, little Timmy Senor will be by for the UFO report. Courtney Marchesani is a clinical health coach of inspired potentials in an integrative mental health and wellness educator. But her greatest achievement, according for at least for this show, is helping fight the good fight when it comes to UFOs and disclosure. Yeah, we need people like Courtney out there because her role is a lot behind the scenes. She's barely in front of the camera. She doesn't do many interviews, but she needs to get the information out. She's a friend of ours behind the scenes. We've been talking for a few years regarding this subject. Recently, she was in Washington, D.C. for the UFO hearings. She's connected to high-ranking scientists and researchers all around the world, trying to bring this conspiracy of life out in the stars to visiting our planet. Let's get right to it. Courtney Marchesani, we very much appreciate you coming on Spaced Out Radio. How are you?
Hi, Dave. I'm good. Your lead-in made me laugh because it made me think of Jerry Maguire, when he's like, he's truculent with the media, he's not been in many interviews.
Word truculent doesn't get used enough on this show, I can tell you that.
Truculent.
Let's learn a little bit about you so I can introduce you to our audience here, because you're somebody who doesn't do this for the press. You're somebody who is doing this for the greater good rather than, the public hype that goes along with it, the popularity that goes along with it. Yet here you are, and I thank you for putting the trust in Spaced Out Radio myself for wanting to do this. But for you, why do this? Why get involved so deeply into this story?
I mean, it's been a labyrinth, from the beginning, but I wasn't really interested in UFOs at all until I had my own, really crazy experience with my daughter in Oregon. I was really interested in intuition. That's how I started on the research, and I wrote a book, and I was talking about, advocacy for people who were intuitives, and was really, especially in the book that I wrote, I was talking about sensitivity. And so then I found that my work kind of crossed over with other scientists like Gary Nolan. Because when Gary Nolan came out and, James Yandoli wrote about the caudate putamen, I was like, oh my God, this is a cross section. Like we fit together somehow in this crazy field. And I got really excited. And so that's when I really stepped in. That's when I really stepped into the field. And I started talking with people like Grant Cameron, and his work made a lot of sense to me. I really appreciated what he was doing, raising awareness about things like psychic phenomenon, intuition, how it's all connected, precognition. That was really my love, my first interest. But then I had an experience. I had a profound experience with my daughter in Oregon when I was taking her to college. And I drove down from Alaska, down through your neck of the woods, actually, into Montana. We stopped over into Montana for a few days to visit friends. And then we drove over from Montana to Oregon for her orientation. And we were on this back road, going up through a pass. And she says there's fireworks out there in the field. And I'm like, what? Like, we're in the middle of nowhere. That doesn't make sense. And it was really late in the season, like fall. Didn't make sense. It wasn't a 4th of July thing. And so it's pitch black. And all of a sudden she said, there it goes again. Fireworks. And I can't really see them because I'm looking down underneath the visor, and all of a sudden 3 big lights, it was like they were hailing us, came above our Toyota Tundra or truck. And then one of them dropped way down, right in front of the truck. And then it split in two. The light split in two. And then the lights followed the truck on each side and kind of paced us. And it really seemed like they were intelligent. So, I mean, that story goes on and goes into really strange stuff that happened that night. But that's what drove me into the field even deeper. And then I had all these after effects after it happened, and they were even more profound. So that's what led me in.
Having a scientific background that you do, what is your thoughts, when you try and put your own experiences that you experience there together with your education and what you've been taught about the human mind?
Well, when I went to psych in clinical psychology in the 90s, they were just really talking about pharmaceutical medicine, and counseling, and it wasn't connecting the mind and body at all. I mean, when I did my own research, it was in, neurology and neuropsychology. So it was really just about the brain and what affects the brain and what diseases affect the brain. I didn't get into intuition until I had some of my own experiences with psychic phenomenon. And then I started to really look into it as a researcher, because I thought, well, maybe there's an explanation for this in psychology. And the first book that I found, because I never read any New Age books. I never read anything. I mean, I read thrillers and stuff, but I'd never read anything about the paranormal. I had no idea. I went to a bookstore in Seattle, and it was Russell Targ and Jane Katra. They wrote a book called Miracles of Mind. And I read his book, and it made a lot of sense to me. And I think it was Diana Pasulka who talks about people who get initiated somehow through books, and that first book that you find when you go on the search is actually really important. And as I look back now, 20 years after I went and found that book, it totally makes sense, because he was talking about psychic phenomenon and healing. And as a researcher, I've been down every darn rabbit hole with all of it, and I really do find that first book that I found made a lot of sense and kind of led my journey to where I am now.
Why have you chosen, for the most part, to stay out of the public eye? You're working behind the scenes with a lot of people. You're very well trusted, very well respected within the UFO community, but the public doesn't really know who you are. Why have you stayed behind the scenes with everything?
Well, I think it's because I do have a professional life. I mean, I volunteer for organizations in, holistic health and wellness, and I do community work and things, but it's not that I don't accept if people ask me. I usually do. I'm just not one of like the superstars of the field, but I work really hard. I'm a hard worker, and I think that's why people probably um I definitely get like messages about things when people are trying to find stuff for some obscure fact. I mean, we just had an experience or weekend here on our farm in Pennsylvania, and it was very quiet. I didn't advertise it, but people who were experiencers came and stayed. And, we did a lot of healing work. And, that's the stuff that I enjoy. And it is private. And I think that's because this experience is a singular experience that people are having, and they're very isolated with it. So I want to remain trusted and respected, and I want to keep that trust that people have in me. So that's why I don't go out and try to do a lot of media or anything like that, because I want people to still trust me. And there is that mistrust of people who are out there in the media. They're called grifters or whatever. I don't really understand it, but I don't really want to be in that level.
No, I can understand that. It's a very fine line, because ufology, if anything, has become a battle royale over especially the last year or so, regarding information. And if you come out as a whistleblower, you're blown away, and people are doxing you. If you come out as one of the historians, people are saying you're in UFO for dollars. I mean, there's excuses for everything that don't seem to fit the attitudes of a lot of people in this field. But there is a lot of work going on behind the scenes. You've seen
Yeah.
it, I've seen it, with very deep personal conversations that are going on. Where is this story going, and why is it important to continue it?
Well, and the other thing, besides the fact that there's a lot of work, I think there's a lot of money. I think there's a lot of money right now being dumped into the field to certain groups. And, in the past, the big funder we all know was Robert Bigelow, right? Because he had really deep pockets, and he's one that's probably put the most money in, private investment wise, besides what grant he got from, the government. But I think the story is unknown. It's a mystery. I mean, I have my own opinions about it. I don't know, if that's going to be validated or not, but I think that more and more people are having contact experiences. And I do think the thrust of this is coming out of the UAP task force, of people who are working very hard on that task force. It was set up to be taken seriously, and then it was just kind of shut down. And then Arrow was established. And as we know through the Arrow public information sessions, they've been really disappointing for people who are still having contact. And so there's this tension happening in the story between, especially the American public and people in ufology and people in the research community. They want the story to come out because of all the money that's being spent, the misappropriation of funds, and where that money has been going for so long. And so when people were there at the hearing, they wanted disclosure. And I do think that it was some form of disclosure, don't you?
No,
You don't?
no.
Why not?
And I don't say that to, advert from what you are talking about. I am a firm believer that we are in a confirmation movement.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Disclosure to me means so much more. Okay,
Yeah.
it's to me, disclosure is everything.
I mean, the mention of non-human intelligence, though, is pretty spectacular. I mean, I just have to say, considering we've been trying so hard just to get them to admit that there's craft.
No, I agree with that. I agree. I was blown
Okay.
away by David Grush's testimony, and
Yeah.
I remember talking to a few people afterwards saying, something's going to come down. Watch, something's going to come down where the alphabet agencies are going to gas them, and look what happened,
I know. I
right?
was so upset. I was so upset. I did the press release for that when it broke. Like, I did a kind of like a crisis management thing, and just said, this is ridiculous. where, he should be protected under the Whistleblower Protection Act. I was on your show right afterwards talking about the Whistleblower Protection Act and what protections that affords. And so I got so upset, like I got a meeting with Grush's legislative aide because I was so pissed off about the fact that this was happening in the American public, in the eye, and it was allowed to go on. And he has this complaint that was an urgent concern, which is actually written into the Whistleblower Protection Act, into the law. And here we have, this journalist that gets all this information, is able to find, how many addresses he lived at, what hospital he went at when he was under a hold, the temporary hold. And so it was obvious that he was fed. And so when I went to meet with Tim Burchett's aide, he showed me the letter that he wrote to the DOD and to the Inspector General. And I got to read it. And I was just like, this is great, because he was actually responding to it saying, this is not okay. You need to tighten up the protections for David Grush around whistleblower protection. And I was really happy to see that. But then I haven't been watching the news too much because we had this retreat for the experiencers. And I saw that they came out and the DOD said there should be no more hearings because it's going to make the DOD vulnerable. Like, what the hell? Really? How could the DOD ever be vulnerable? Are you kidding me?
I want to get into that. I want to get into that in our next half hour here. But I mean, how did you work your way into working a press release?
I was available, for one, because I was seeing everything shaking out, and I saw that Ross was going to have an interview with Chris Como, and I saw that he was going to be talking about, what had happened, and that the journalist had contacted him. And then I got a call from a very close friend, and she said, we need to do something about this right now. And she couldn't act on it. And so I said, I'll take the ball and I'll do it. And I had the press release done in like 15 to 20 minutes. And so we had that out online before the Intercept story broke, just to say to the Intercept, don't do it. Don't run the story. Like, this is not okay. We are part of a community where, we're kind of watchdogs on this kind of behavior. And there was a response. There was a loud response from Twitter, and it was a huge response, and it went like wildfire. And it was very exciting to see everybody get fired up, about this and the reaction, and that they were very supportive of Grush. And so I was really happy to see that. Even though it was a small role that I played, I was really happy to see that it set off a fire in the community and people were really pissed off.
Well, I don't know if you saw my show with Bruce Claggett, BFC Communications out of Vancouver. Now, Bruce is a 35-year journalist. He's taught journalism, spent most of that time working in radio in Vancouver. And for disclosure purposes, him and I are best friends. And I was the best man at his wedding. Nice. And him and I got into the journalism side of this because he knows nothing about UFOs. The subject interests him, but he doesn't know the names of players. And when we kind of started breaking it down about what, that certain journalist wrote, he went off on the fact that was absolutely unprofessional. You never bring somebody's personal life into it unless there's a caveat. That caveat being, say, Joe Smith, politician, is having to step down from his 40 years of being a mayor of small townville, California, because he's dying of cancer. Okay, or maybe has been charged with, substance abuse or whatever, when that's the case. But in a case like this, where you have a veteran who has not lost his security clearance, obviously trusted by the government. Okay.
And high clearance. Did you see in the one interview, I think it was Ross Coulthart's first interview with News Nation, where he said that he did briefings for the president?
Yes.
I mean, so it wasn't just security like TSI clearance. He was cleared at one of the highest level clearances to give security briefings to the president of the United States. And this is how he was treated.
Absolutely. And I'm not saying that's right. Okay. But I know from a journalism side, the only way that story comes out is when you find somebody who's struggling to get their name out there, and they're going to take their shot. Okay. They're going to take their shot at no matter what it is. And that's what he did.
He was so cavalier, though, in Twitter. I mean, I wasn't on the spaces when he was. I think I was probably asleep by that time because I had been up so late doing the press release. But he was on Twitter spaces that next night, taunting the UFO community. And then somebody put on a screenshot of his private conversation with someone else. And he said, "Hey, jump on. I'm, what did he say? I'm riling up all the UFO nerds." And I was just like, this is a guy who, wanted to make a name for himself, obviously, took information. But what about the editor? What did your friend say about the editor who allowed the story to be published? Because I was wondering that myself. Like, why would the editor approve that information being released?
Well, I mean, that goes to the professionalism, right? Don't forget, there's a lot of TMZs out there. Okay.
Yeah.
And this,
there are. You're right. There are a lot of TMZs. But you know what? The Intercept was supposed to be, and even I thought this was interesting pickup in the News Nation interview between Ross and Chris Cuomo. Did you catch that? He basically just came out and said, the Intercept is, basically this high quality Washington, D.C., outlet. And yet this is what they allowed. So then other people in the UFO community, which I love the response, go and look at all the other people, the whistleblowers that trusted the Intercept, and they all went to jail. Did you see that?
No, I did not see that.
3 other whistleblowers who went to the Intercept to use the Intercept as a safe place to release information to the public had all gone and been prosecuted afterwards.
Were any of them tied to the reporter?
I don't know if it was the same exact reporter. I didn't go and get to vet that information, but I still think it's an interesting coincidence that, they had a tendency to go to the Intercept and then they ended up going to jail. And there are several stories about it. I didn't go and read all the stories because I've been super busy since the hearing, but I'm going to go read each of the whistleblower stories and see what was the context, what was the legal way that they put them in jail, why were there no protections, and see, what the story is. Because if there's more like involvement from the intelligence community, then you can obviously say there's a track record of the intelligence community using the Intercept as a way to lure these people in.
You could totally say that.
I mean, I don't know that yet, but I would hedge my bets just seeing the first 3 cases that got released on Twitter. And that's what's so great about the UFO community as researchers. There's these high level researchers in the UFO community. They're kind of like, the best. They just find stuff, they dig things up. It's really amazing. That's why I like being in this community. People typically help one another and things will usually come to light. That's why I think disclosure is going to happen. Because it's such a huge wave that's happening right now. I mean, it's been going on for a long time, but it seems like it's hitting critical mass to me with the David Grush testimony.
Well,
it'd be hard for them to put this genie back in the bottle.
I agree with you. As we got about a minute to go here, do you think, though, and we may have to carry this answer across to the other side, that what happened to Grush will scare off other whistleblowers?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Because who knows what they have in their own personal lives. His is very, I would say, normal, being a veteran and having experienced trauma, coming home and having trouble adjusting, having his friend and a fellow veteran commit suicide right after he talks to him. I mean, that his response of feeling depressed is pretty normal. And so I have a feeling that other people who might have things in their personal history will be scared off. Yes. And who knows how deep it goes or what threats. We don't know.
We don't know. And that is the number one subject, as we move forward and move this ball forward with ufology. We don't know the story. Courtney, I'm going to get you to hold on right there as we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Courtney Marchesani continues. Are there going to be more hearings? Big story coming up next on Spaced Out Radio. You stay tuned.
I have to go run and get my charger. I'll be right back.
I'm going to be right back, too. I got to go get some hot tea. I'm dying here.
Well, super crazy movie geek. I'm drawing 4 characters I have 10 I have to draw for the second book. And the gargoyle is all soggy. What the heck, buddy boy?
Oh, hi. Sorry about that.
That's okay. How you feeling? Are you okay?
I feel great. Just here. This is where it sucks, right here. So I got some tea brewing. I've got Vicks Vapor Rub all over me.
I was going to ask about Ricola. Ricola.
I got Fisherman's Friends.
Good.
I'm set. I'm ready. Just audience, don't get grossed out when I blow my nose. I'll try and put you on mute for that. I apologize for my sickness, but that's okay. Hi, Mike Arrington, Danny Staten, how are you? Bobo, good to see you. Who else has jumped in here? God, I love Vicks Vapor Rub. Baby UFO, nice to see you. Iggy. I think we're caught up. I think we are caught up. Mac Geek, nice to see you. Yeah, we got to catch up on the phone, Courtney. We have to catch up on the phone.
Yeah, we were supposed to catch up and we missed each other, but I really want to hear.
Yeah.
I really want to hear what's going on.
Yeah. Philip Blair.
We had stuff happen here this past weekend too on the farm. Some pretty crazy stuff, like stuff that happens at Skinwalker Ranch, actually. So, nice. Yeah, I would like to tell you about that as well.
Maybe I should fly up there. Geek Calgary, how are you? Paul and Cyan Hamden, how are you guys? Can't wait to chat with you on Wednesday. Getting better. Getting better. All right. We have 20 seconds. Thank you, W. Decker and Deb and Pam and Louie times 2 and Enki for the super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do. Hi, gorgeous Kim Jellin. How are you? I did clean my room. Yes, I did. Here we go, everybody. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join our Space Travelers Club over on Patreon. Courtney Marchesani is here. She's very much in deep with the UFO story and what's breaking out of Washington, D.C. She is an insider to us, and she is extremely knowledgeable on the topic, both from the woo side and the political side as well. Courtney, thank you so much for being here.
So nice being on your show.
Yes. Yeah, I appreciate it. I really do. I want to ask you, because you were at the last hearings, you felt the emotion when David Grush stood up, or didn't stand up, but said in front of the microphone that we have non-human intelligence. They are here. We have the bodies. We have the craft. What went through your mind at that moment?
I mean, it was astonishing. It was astonishing. And there was a visceral feeling where everybody was just like, oh, I mean, it was a collective breath, but it was also, like this anticipation that had built up in the hallway for hours and hours before. I think I told you that Randall Nickerson was there at 3:00 in the morning. I mean, waiting to be the first person to get in. It was such anticipation that was built up. And so when he said it, it was like this huge collective release of all of us just going, oh my God, it's out. It can't be taken back. It's on the record. And there were people that were crying, and just the release and the relief from the fact that it was said was incredible. It was like a miraculous. It really was. And it was a monumental thing. And you knew that you were there on this historic occasion, and you can't take it back. So it was pretty spectacular.
When Grush left and the other speakers left, I remember you saying that there was like a standing ovation for them.
Yeah, there was a standing ovation in the hallway when Tim Burchett was going in, because everybody was clapping and so excited because he's been on the front end of a lot of this. And then at the end, there was another. And then there was just hordes of people outside the hearing room. And I took one photo when I was going by, just trying to get Burchett, and he was just in a sea of reporters with all the mics over him. And it was surreal. It was surreal to be there and see it and witness it firsthand. Uh-oh, I can't hear you, Dave. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
Now what we're seeing is the other side, the uglier side of it, when the reporter from The Intercept, a week and a half ago, released the PTSD story and the health issues that David Grush is having. We knew something ugly was going to happen. And now, fast forward again, we see reports coming out of Washington, D.C., that there are certain politicians who no longer want any more UFO hearings, from from a defense standpoint, from a money standpoint, from an embarrassment standpoint. Talk to us about this.
Yeah, it's a concern. And I know that when I was in Washington last week, I went down for this impromptu meeting because I had reached out to Burchett's people and said, hey, this isn't okay. Like, you need to have a response about the Whistleblower Protection Act. And so I went down to meet with them and discuss like a plan of action, a political plan of action of how we can be supportive. Because I know that people in the UFO community will be supportive to help move things along. So he just basically said that their, letter to go in for the special select committee had been submitted. That also got floated around Twitter, that they request to have a very independent or select committee. And so I was trying to inquire and find out, well, will this be a joint committee if the Senate gets behind it? And, that just was like way too early, way too soon of a question. And he was basically like, we need to get support from the other members and also, the Speaker of the House. So the suggestion was, if you want to do anything like political, advocacy to get this move forward and actually get a select committee, you have to get the other members on board with it. So your question is timely because there's some people that don't want to move forward. I saw this letter from the Republican guy. I can't remember what his name is right now, but it just broke that, they don't want to have any more hearings because the DOD would be vulnerable. And so I think you're going to see it's been pretty bipartisan right now, but I think you're going to start to see some partisanship, to say the least, of who's getting money, who's behind the scenes, who gets campaign contributions from certain groups and corporations. And I think that's all going to be pretty obvious. I mean, we'll be able to put together the puzzle,
We called it on this show. We said that eventually when this, and people, you could go back on tape and on our archives, which are free, and you can listen to Tim Cedar and I talk about this. I stated emphatically that when the military-industrial complex gets pissed off about this subject, they are going to go to some of their representatives and say, hey, that contract we gave you for the wheels of the F-35s, if you want that UFO stuff to go on, we may move that to California, or we may move that to Arizona. This is the game that's being played right now.
Yeah.
And talk to me about it.
Oh, I mean, I think it's obvious that the military-industrial complex is pissed that, the hearing went through, that he was given an audience, that all the witnesses came together. They didn't just put Grush up there by himself. They prepared and they took two other people who had also been involved so that he wouldn't be the one person. Even if he did have mental health issues in the past, he has these other people standing beside him. So I think that it is, there is a lot of support for the hearing, and there is a lot of support because let's look at it. AOC, right? Cortez, she wants to find out about the contractors and the money, and she wants to know where the money is. So does Burchett. He wants to rip the lid off of it, according to him, that he wants to get to the Pentagon and understand where this money is going. And Grush has some of the answers. So they know that. And so Grush has said as much. They're using administrative terrorism to terrorize him. And he's just been validated because they just did it in the media. And so you're damn right. It's going to start coming through the military and industrial complex and other ways to try to shut it all down. Because if they can't shut it down through Grush, they'll shut it down through members in the Congress that they can get it to block.
Where's Lou Elizondo through all this? I mean, the man has been a demigod for many new to the UFO community since his introduction through the TTSA, and the last year he's gone silent. We've seen Sean Cahill speak up a little bit recently, especially on News Nation, and his beard is looking good as ever. Okay, but where's Lou? Everybody's wondering. Where's Lou?
Well, I know that his, I don't know Lou personally, but, just as somebody like everybody else who watches his interviews, watches his movements, trying to put the pieces in the puzzle together, I think that his case with Danny Sheehan had a lot to do with that. I mean, I'm just guessing, but it's an educated guess, right? Because he was very outspoken. He was doing media appearances. He was going on everybody's show. He was being very accessible to everybody. And then you just saw that kind of shut down. He did a few more media interviews, but he basically said, I have to do my book. So I'm really interested to see the book coming out, because some of the things that he's talked about, some of the sound bites for the book really sound interesting. Like, did you see this sound bite that he did about the super soldier that he was going to talk about in his book?
No, I missed that.
Yeah. So he made a comment on Twitter about this super soldier, which I was like, oh my God, if we're going to go into super soldier territory, because, you know, the super soldier story and the super soldier conference and all of that have been going on for years and years with testimony from these guys who have been talking about all these secret projects. So I'm wondering if he's just waiting, right, until Grush's testimony comes out and other things, and then he's going to start releasing some more information that's critical to the story, to the development of the whole thing. Because there's a lot of us who know about the super soldier stories, but you're always wondering to yourself, can that be true? I mean, it's so far out. It's so far-fetched, some of the stuff they're talking about. And like breakaway civilizations and things like that. That's direct tie-in, right? And it's a total conspiracy theory right now. But if that comes out and he validates that, that's going to be game-changing. So I'm hedging my bets, but I think that it was because of his case. Because the DOD went after him. Remember, they took his emails and they said that he never worked for them. But we saw in the hearing when David Fravor said, I reported to Lou Elizondo, who was the director of ATIP. I mean, we got validation that he did. So I think that if you're paying attention long enough, you're starting to see that he was being intimidated himself. Lou Elizondo was.
Oh, hugely. And you know what? I mean, when you're getting it on all fronts, when you're having people on UFO Twitter dox you, when you have your own government agents that were once friends coming after you now, when you have government military officials putting threats to you, your daughters, your wife, their careers. I mean, this is ugly stuff that Elizondo, he never talked about it publicly, but behind the scenes, he's a man of integrity, and he was worried about his own safety and more so not his safety, but his family's safety.
I have heard horror stories from individuals who I cannot name that are completely confidential, but I've heard personal stories that the FBI and the CIA have gone to them individually and threatened people in their family if they continue to talk in the community, if they continue to tell their story about how they worked for certain individuals in the government about UFO programs, that if they said anything more, that they're, well, you like your nieces, don't you? You like your nephews, don't you? Stuff like that. I mean, I've heard stories like that, and I believe them. And now when you see what's going on with Grush and, what happened with Lou Elizondo publicly, you can start to get the fact that, they're not immune. They're not superheroes. They love their family. They have loved ones and people they care about. Of course, they're going to be intimidated on some level.
Absolutely. And I agree with you on that. I mean, there's case history on this. I mean, but the fact that they're now discovering that there are certain politicians on both sides of the ledger who are saying, do we really need these talks going on? Courtney, in your circle, what are you hearing about this? And do you see this as the beginning of the end to government involvement in ufology?
I think that people are definitely skittish and afraid. I'm not afraid, actually, because I think that there are some pretty big groups right now who want to press forward. And the fact that the DOD is saying we want to shut this down, just going to fuel the fire. And so there are elected officials. They're getting pressure. They're getting pressure from their constituency. They're getting pressure from the UFO community, which you wouldn't think, right, is a serious thing if people aren't taking it seriously. But the fact that they used information in the hearing from people in the UFO community, to me, is a very positive sign. If you listen to that hearing and you listen to the testimony and you listen to the questions that were asked, they have been studying and vetting people in the UFO community and using their research and asking the right questions. And so I was very, very excited about the fact that they're listening to us on some level, or they're listening to the people that they think have, good information or good sources, right, that they're vetting. And so I think that I'm not as disheartened as a lot of other people are, because they're obviously listening to us. I mean, if they weren't listening to us, we wouldn't have heard our own words kind of being echoed back to us through that hearing. So that was a really good sign.
I was told by somebody on an inside basis that even this radio show, every time we talk UFOs, is on the docket for listening.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
And-
sure Spaced Out Radio is on the list of, research, review, who's on, who's got what information, because they have been involved in the UFO community the whole time with individuals who are embedded. And so I know that there are people who are actually embedded in the UFO community for that reason. And they don't say, but you can kind of tell who they are. And, I wonder to myself, well, why are they embedded in the UFO community? Is it just to see who the rabble rousers are? No, that's not it.
Let me ask you this. Why? As a professional, I understand why. But for the people out there who may not understand, why keep those people quiet? Why not expose them for what they are?
Because I think that they help in certain situations with information. I think those CIA folks that are working in certain either projects or certain communities, they give a little. There's a little bit of give and take. And so I think that that's kind of like, it's like a bartering system almost of information. And people are always seeking information in the UFO community. I mean, that's kind of the sickness, if there is one in this community, is everybody's kind of trying to learn more, get more, always hungry for the next thing that's going to drop. And so I think that they use that to their advantage because they know that there's so much secrecy, but I think that they give a little. That's why. I think that's why they don't get exposed as much as maybe they should, or they would.
And I've been told by many times that a lot of the popular figures, especially a number of them that came out since the To the Stars Academy, have been bought, not financially, but with information, with leads, with stories.
Well, that's one of the things that Grant Cameron said to me when he first talked with me and we had our like one-on-one and discussed stuff. He was like, well, they're probably going to approach you, but if they do, you're going to have to give up a lot of your, your work, your rights, your ability to discuss things and talk about stuff. And that was pretty eye-opening when he said that in our first conversation. I was like, wow, dang, Grant's been in the community for a long time. He knows what the score is. He knows how to play the game. So when he gave me that heads up, I was just like, well, I wouldn't, probably get approached by anybody, but you know what? You never know. You never know.
Have you been?
No. I know a couple people who are experiencers who, and this is really interesting, little known fact, that could basically be in contact, right? You hear Uri Geller say that he goes a certain place, they tell him where to be, and then they come down. Well, there's an American guy who has a very similar story, has very similar contacts. He never worked in SRI, but he worked in a similar SAP program with another big figurehead. And the CIA came towards him and said, do you want to work with us and be a consultant? Because he didn't want to work for the CIA, but in order to be under that SAP program, he had to kind of be a consultant. So I know that he is being tracked, right? And I know 2 or 3 other people that I talk to are being tracked. So I haven't been approached, but I know they listen to my phone calls. I'm damn sure that they listen to my phone calls and they probably read my emails because they probably use the Prism software for the Patriot Act. So I think it's interesting. I think I told you this, or maybe we didn't talk about this in the text, but did you know that David Grush's attorney was the one who drafted and wrote the Patriot Act?
No, I did not know that. That's
Yeah,
very
so that was an interesting thing. That was a weird thing that happened where I got a call on the weekend before Ross Coulthart went on and talked about the leak, the potential leak. I got a call from somebody who said that information. Do you know that he wrote the Patriot Act? And I was like, no. And it was like, you better vet who that guy is. Then that was it. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I need to look into McCullough now, can learn more about him and what administrations he worked for and learn what he did. And so that's something that I'm like been alerted to. And so then why 3 days or 2 days later, just 2 days later, did The Intercept go ahead and leak this? I thought the timing of that was pretty suspicious.
Well, I can tell you that I have received a call. And I can't get into that right now because, well, I could give a little bit because I haven't signed anything or anything like that. I'm just kind of listening to what they're saying. But, for the sake and purpose of it, it's very intriguing. And, it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's amazing what they want out of you. And it's amazing how they butter you up and saying we need you and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just like, you feel like you got diamonds on.
Well, you've been in the field for a really long time and you have a huge network. And not only that, you kind of see how everything ties together or how certain groups of people, I mean, that would be very valuable for them.
Yeah. So, I have not, and I will be truthful to my audience. I have not signed anything. I have not agreed to anything. I have.
What would they think if you did? What would happen if you actually did sign something? I mean, what would your audience think about that? Do you think that they would be upset, or do you think they'd be like, "Oh, it's the cost of doing business in the UFO community"? I mean,
hey, if I could get mid six figures out of them,
they'd be like, go Dave,
Yeah.
make that money, give me the Quan, show me the money, right? Jerry Maguire.
But I will say this. The people who contacted me are not as interested in the cover up as they are about learning about the phenomena.
Right.
And but those type of people keep it very tight-lipped because they don't want others or other companies to know their advancements within the woo. And there is a lot of interest in the woo. Companies just don't want to admit that they're playing in that field and spending dollars in that field, right?
Yeah, because it gets to be a really slippery slope. I mean, what part of it are they looking into? I mean, I was watching Chris Bartell on another show, and I didn't know his backstory about being at Skinwalker and being a veteran and working the night shift. I mean, I had seen him on the show as the guy who worked the night shift. And when I listened to his story, post-op, after all the shit that happened there, he broke open some crazy stuff. And he talked about a paranormal that what they wanted to develop was a paranormal, I want to say this right, psychotronic weaponry, or they were testing it on veterans. I mean, he made that claim. Now, I'm not saying that that's what they were doing, but that's the claim that he made in this interview. And I thought to myself, boy, that's really interesting, because he tried to quit. He tried to quit at Skinwalker, and they brought him back and begged him. And I think it was Bob Bigelow himself that said, please don't leave. We want to offer you better, pay or salary or whatever, or better shifts, so that he would stay. And so that also to me means, were they studying the guys that they had there on the security force? I mean, you really have to look at that information and wonder, why were they so reluctant to let him go?
I agree. Courtney, we're going to continue this fun conversation when we return from the break here on Spaced Out Radio. Courtney Marchesani is our guest. She's a scientist. She's a researcher. She's an experiencer of the UFO phenomena, and we absolutely love her around here as she brings the real news behind the scenes, what is going on in the latest disclosure movement on Spaced Out Radio. It's her first time on the show, just me and her. I can tell you right now, this is going to happen again. Oh yeah, Spaced Out Radio's Hour 2 coming up next on the Mighty SOR. All right. Are you there, Courtney?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
What has Dirty Filth got going on here?
I was looking at the red eyes. That's kind of what showed up at our farm this past weekend.
Well, you talk to Dirty Filth. I'm just going to go blow my
I
nose.
will.
Okay,
How did that come to you? Because that is exactly what was described to me just 2 days ago.
Well, I've got a Mothman, a Man in Black, Kentucky Goblin, and a Sasquatch I'm working on.
Oh, wow. That kind of captures everything that we've been talking about. I want to take a screenshot of that little guy and send it to the guy who saw him to see if it looks the same as what he's described to me.
I've got another drawing here with the Mothman. Here we are.
Boy, that looks exact. He said that it appeared on the edge of our property and that it followed him. And I was talking to somebody about it, and they said that's a skinwalker, but I forgot about Mothman. And, Mothman showed up, I think it was in Ohio, right? Wasn't it the Ohio Bridge? Or Virginia?
Point Pleasant, West Virginia, yes.
Virginia. It happened in Virginia. Why am I thinking Ohio? Was there something that went on in Ohio?
I'm not sure. Isn't that where they're famous for cheese?
Mm-hmm. And this looks like a big old turd. Don't you think?
Or Sasquatch.
Somebody was really constipated. Or a Sasquatch, yeah.
He's got a big heart. He'll be okay.
He'll be okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to offend him.
He's gonna come over to your house and steal your beer and everything, and
which is
eat all the
interesting.
dog food.
We don't usually have beer on the porch, but we have a lot of Keystone Light on the porch right now because we just shot my dad his ashes off the porch of our house because he wanted to be loaded up in shotgun shells. And so we just basically dispersed his ashes by shotgun shells. And there's a bunch of natural light or whatever, Keystone Light on the porch because nobody drank it. Because, of course, it tastes like warm piss.
Yeah, we got a whole bunch of beer like that in Canada too. Kokanee. Oh.
I was going to say Kokanee. My first Canadian beer that I ever had was when we came up through Coeur d'Alene, and I think we actually, went in through Sandpoint, and we had Kokanee, and I didn't like it. I did not like it.
It's not as much. The old commercials were good back in the day, but you got to drink the White Rabbit Pilsner. That's the best. If you
White Rabbit Pilsner. I was just going to ask you, what kind of beers do you have that you like? Do you have microbrews like we have in some places? They're very popular.
Yeah, they got a lot of those. I usually buy a special beer on Fridays once in a while, and I go to buy the little individual ones that you get just singles and whatnot. I always like trying new things.
Yeah. I don't drink beer too much either. I used to be a big beer drinker, but I'm not anymore. I think it's because it probably ruined my guts. It's not good for your guts.
Yeah, it's
TMI. TMI. You're like, what's up with this lady? She's talking about bear droppings and gut issues. I went to Canada one time, and where was I? I was outside of Edmonton, and I went to this biker bar, and there was a bunch of people there, and all they wanted to talk about in that biker bar was UFOs. Isn't that interesting? Because I think that they had seen them a bunch up there. Have you guys ever heard about Edmonton being a hot spot for UFOs?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting place. I filmed some strange lights here in Edmonton once in 2020 February.
Yeah,
it was pretty interesting.
Did you ever go to the Rose and Crown in Edmonton?
No, I have not.
It's a funny place.
There used to be a bar on White Ave called Filthy McNasties, and the sign, it's all shut down now. But I really want the sign, so.
I think the Rose and Crown was probably maybe a step up from Filthy McNasties. Maybe one or two steps. They had music. They had a piano bar. So
Oh,
for
that's
whatever
fancy.
that's
I'm gonna have
worth.
to wear nice shoes there.
You know you're in trouble at a piano bar.
Yeah, it was the Rose and Crown in Edmonton.
Yep.
Yeah, I had some fun there. I did not get up on the piano and dance, though. I will say that. If you have any images in your mind, it did not happen.
Sure, Courtney.
I swear to God. I was just saying before you came on that I did go to a biker bar with a friend who lived up in Edmonton, and all they wanted to talk in there, Dave, was about UFOs because a bunch of the bikers had seen UFOs out there in Edmonton. So I was just asking if it was a hot spot.
Edmonton is a hot spot.
Yeah.
It really is. I want to say a big thank you to W. Decker, Deb, Pam, Louie ×2, Enki, Monica, and Human Carl for the great super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you so much. Very appreciated. And please do us the favor. Join the Space Travelers Club. It is in the description below on the show if you're tuning on in, and it is on Patreon. So we'd love to have you join. We've already got Lynn. We've already got Mennonite Abe. And we'd love for a few more of you to join in. You can also do your shopping at spacedoutradio.com. We got really cool swag there. And here we go, everyone. The second hour of the show is about to begin. Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you here. My name is Dave Scott, your host with the most tinfoil wrapped around him at all times. Hey, I want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Please join us at youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. WASM. WASM is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag, follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and join our Space Travelers Club on Patreon. Here we go with Courtney Marchesani. She is an insider. She is an experiencer. She is part of the story behind the scenes to try and get ufology, UFOs, alien contact into the public eye. We are so glad to have her tonight. Courtney, thank you so much for being here. It really is an honor to have you on this show, knowing you don't do a lot of shows, but the fact that you have chosen to come on with us really, really sets the mark for us. It really does.
Thanks, Dave. I think I've only ever been on like 3 shows. So you're right on the mark there. I just don't do that much. I did a whole podcast thing for my book when it came out because I had to for the book publicity and whatnot, but not on the UAP issue. But because of the hearing and stuff, people want to hear what's going on. So it's kind of nice to be able to talk about things that I've been working on.
Behind the scenes, we see a lot of different groups. I like to call it disclosure for dollars. You mentioned earlier that there's a lot of money coming up in this field. And I don't know if a lot of those special interest groups, whether it's Enigma Labs, whether it's Ryan Graves' new group, whether it's the SCU, whether it's Avi Loeb and his Galileo project, or whoever else of the dozens that are popping up out of nowhere, I don't know if that is really what's best for ufology in moving this story forward, where public or private representation is trying to take over the story. Where do you sit on this?
I think that it is a mixed blessing in some ways that there are groups popping up because it shows that it's a real science. It shows that it's a real field of people that are working on trying to understand the phenomenon. I really like some of the academic conferences that I've been to, which especially the one at Rice University, when we were in that group together and I was sending the pictures. Do you remember that, of like Jacques Vallée and Diana Pasulka? Because it helps us connect. So those things I think are good. And they obviously aren't, in my opinion, trying to make money doing that kind of academic conference. But then you see like Enigma Labs. Now, what's that all about, right? I've heard that it's Peter Thiel, that's running it. So he was the head of, PayPal and was friends with Elon Musk. I think they're still friends. And, he's just making gazillions of dollars. So why does he want to be in it? And there's a whole political thing around Peter Thiel as well that people don't know about, which, we don't have to go into, but the way he has supported certain politicians, right? Put them in the limelight, put tons of money behind them. And so when you go and you start to look at the track record of some of these people, Bob Bigelow has done the same thing. He donated 10 million to DeSantis. And so if you start to look at the way these big money guys with the deep pockets are putting their money behind certain people, that's not just for, giggles. There's an agenda. And so I think we still don't know what the agenda is, but I do know for a fact that Peter Thiel wants to get that technology and he wants to get it into Silicon Valley. I just know that. And so is that a good thing for experiencers? I don't think so. How does that help us? How does that give us any value? How does that give us any? We don't even know what it is. So I say in that situation, no. And the reason why is because you have to go evaluate why and look at what Enigma is doing and who's involved with it. And you also have to have a little bit of behind the scenes. I heard that he was scooping people up that were the top level people, especially journalists and researchers, and putting them in Enigma Labs. And that's a loss for us in the community, because then they have to go under an NDA and then they can't share any information with the community. And they're people like subject matter experts. So that's a loss. So I think it's a mixed bag or a mixed blessing. And you have to look at each organization and see the way they move, see the people that they bring, what their work entails, and what the public will actually get out of it, if anything at all. If they're going to release information to the public, then it's probably a good thing that they have the top level people working for their organization. But, in other situations like Enigma, no, I'm not a fan.
One scientist that I talked to on this show, and I'm going to keep his name out of it. People could go back in our archives and find it from about May of this year. It blew my mind when he stated that, number one, he was an advisor to Enigma Labs. He didn't see any issue with what Enigma Labs was doing. He also chastised experiencers, saying basically saying that experiencers need to get out of the way and let the scientific community do their job, because experiencers are throwing wrenches in what could be a brand new piece of science, and that we as experiencers were basically a waste of time with anecdotal stories.
Well, then why are they studying us, right? Then why did they take people who had been somehow either affected in their brain development somehow, either through an injury or through contact, and that may have enhanced them, or what? We don't know. We just know what's been put on the record so far, and we're trying to sift through the agenda. But then why did they take certain people who were psychic and then, look at them, and they were all experiencers, every one of them, and one of the contact modalities. I agree. So I think that's kind of a red herring. I don't think that that's actually true, that we're in the way. I think we're actually what is the most fascinating part about the phenomenon. And I think that's so interesting. When I was at the Inquire Anomalous event in New York in April, I went down with a couple other experiencers, and I asked them to come with me so that we could be in the community there in New York. And I have to say, I was in the audience with other experiencers. Most of us were, I think, besides people who were maybe there from the media or other scientists who hadn't had experiences. And I can't tell you the letdown in the actual audience when Kurt Jaimungal just basically said that experiencer stories don't count. I'm sitting there waiting for him to like go on the record to, I think it was Randall Nickerson's comment that you can't just discard all these anecdotal stories because it is data. It's subjective experiences, yes, but it still is data that if used in some type of meta-analysis or studies that takes a lot of it, could still get some type of data. And he just sat there and he ruminated in his own mind about what he felt about it, and he never validated any of us in the entire room. And these are all high-level people who have produced documentary films, who have day jobs, who are researchers. I mean, even Daniel Ingram was there, who was a doctor, saying he was an experiencer. So he just gets invalidated like the rest of us. And he's a high-level, New York City doctor. So I was really disappointed in that. I just thought, how can you say you're a critical thinking scientist and yet negate a whole group of individuals in this population who have had experiences? It just, I don't get it. It's like it's denying facts, and that's not science.
No, but science, like Gary Nolan out of Stanford University states, we wouldn't have half the leads that he does if it wasn't for experiencers.
I really like Gary Nolan. How about him coming out at that big conference, the SALT conference, and being like, I'm 96% sure, and everybody was just like, oh. I mean, I wasn't at that conference, but man, to be a fly on the wall at that conference with all those people and all those financiers and all those Fortune 500 people hearing him say that, yes, another species exists. And he, and he believes with that level of confidence. So good on Gary Nolan. I love Gary Nolan. I think that he's, getting a lot of flack for no reason. And I think that he's the one that's been out on the cutting edge. I know that he has to play ball. He has to play ball, with Kit Green and, all those interconnected people in the CIA. I know that he has to play ball, but I still think he has integrity. After watching him walk and watching him move, and he's trying to get the word out, and I think that's a good thing. And I think that's the thing that gives me faith in this community, is there's people like him that really do want to get it out. So I don't think that we're going to get blockaded because there's members of Congress who don't want it. I think there's a lot more members of Congress who do, for that reason, that there's good, legitimate people in this field saying we need to know this isn't a military industrial complex issue. This is a societal issue. That might drive it in by itself.
Well, it all depends how much the espionage and the military industrial complex starts to tighten up the taps in this. I mean, we're just seeing the beginning of this, and we're just, for many of us, myself included, this is the first time we've ever experienced anything like this, because we've never put ourselves in that kind of a position to ever see, and we think about, they're doing things to the UFO community that we would only think happen in other countries.
Yeah, it's really dark. And people are afraid. And I felt a lot of sympathy and empathy towards David Grush when this came out, because I used to work in mental health. I was a mental health counselor, and I used to work with people who I actually had to do inpatient hospitalization. And it's the worst time in somebody's life. It's the worst, most vulnerable time in their life. And to see that the intelligence community knew that about him and had dirt on him, right? Whether it was the CIA security service or whether it was, through his report and his IG report to the inspector general, and they were able to get that. I don't know, but it was despicable. I mean, it was a disgusting display of reprisal just for fear inducing. And so when you're in the UFO community, a lot of people talk about Men in Black and other things. And when you see something like that, it's just the tip of the iceberg of what's really below it, because that's what was allowed to be public, right? The shot across the bow. So it really is frightening in a lot of ways to know what they're capable of. And I always just tell people that, you are probably being monitored, right? We're all probably being monitored, and it depends on your level of access to the level you're probably being monitored. I mean, I'm nobody, you know, I'm just a small potato person. But I'm sure people like Lou Elizondo and David Grush, I mean, they probably have no privacy. And I think that
That's
goes into like constitutional stuff that makes a lot of people really incensed.
at some point, though, here's where I disagree with the whole government side of the argument. Okay, in my opinion, Ryan, and I'm not picking on Ryan Graves or the the stellar career of David Fravor. Okay, but at some point they have nothing to add outside of their own stories and their own witness testimony. I'm still surprised that somebody like Tim Burchett, okay, hasn't met with people who've been studying UFOs and this subject for decades outside of the political realm. I think of people, and love them or hate them, I'm going to name off a few people. I think of Richard Dolan. I think of Peter Robbins, Grant Cameron, you know, the, you know, Melinda Leslie, even though she
Yeah.
may go a little way too woo for him. Okay. But, Dr. Michael Masters, okay, Bob McGuire, many others who are very heavily involved with this over the decades and really have a lot of knowledge and inside information about what's going on. And I think that time of ignoring that the UFO public doesn't know what it's talking about needs to come to an end too, because they are holding parts of disclosure. They are holding parts with their research and their sources that have been working inside government 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Well, I have to say that some of the people who have come out and said they don't think it's a good idea for disclosure, like Bob Bigelow has said that, like, no, I don't think it's a good idea, and I think Jacques Vallée also may have said something along those lines at some point, because he's talked about it just changing everything and all of our worldviews and everything. So I hear them say things like that the government is actually like kind of doing the right thing. And I don't know what they know. They have a lot more experience in the field, and they have a lot more history and probably had a lot more access to certain level programs. But one of the things that I suspect, just looking at the way things are moving, is they don't want to talk to certain people because they don't want to validate certain parts of the phenomenon, whether it's through lawsuits and money. I think that's a huge driver, because they don't want to have to pay anything if there have been injuries from back engineered craft or things that they couldn't control or didn't understand how they were going to, you work or affect humans or the human population. I think that's part of it, because there's this whole division in our community that it's not UAP, NHI, that it's weaponry. It's weaponry. And so I was having this conversation today with an experiencer, and they didn't even understand that there was a weaponry component.
Of course,
and I'm like, well, you have to go look at the cases where there's burns and radiation and these different types of exposures, when they get so close, are fatal. There's fatalities. I mean, there was fatalities in, Kit Green handed Gary Nolan a bunch of files, and a lot of them were so severe that the patients died. And, we don't know. Gary Nolan never said where those cases came from, but it's obvious that they're trying to figure out what it was. And Kit Green, I think, did a whole thing for somebody's blog that talked about it being a DOD black budget project, most likely. And I brought that up a couple times to people, and they're just like, what? So there's a reason why the government wouldn't want to come out and acknowledge certain things if it's theirs. And that's just, I think at this stage of the game, that's a reality. You have to concede that is one of the realities why they don't want to disclose that they have some level.
And I understand that. I mean, if Ben Rich is correct and we are 50 to 80 years ahead of what we are seeing today, that says a lot in why they can't show us what's going on. But you know what? I think it goes beyond that, Courtney. I think it goes beyond the idea that government doesn't want to admit to this because there is a lot of posturing around what happens to the economy. I mean, yes, we like to consider ourselves in the Western world a much more mature, grown up type of human, but there are people still partying like it's 14.99 over a book. There are people who are very religious zealots that that believe anything coming from the sky is demonic. You know, we don't know how it's going to affect everyday people who suffer from depression and anxiety. We don't know, and I think where people got scared, and I've said this before on this show, is the way they witnessed people treating people during COVID.
Oh,
And, you
oh
know,
my God.
whether I don't care what anybody believes about COVID, it isn't about COVID. It's about the way we treated each other, turning people in for not wearing a face diaper. Okay, turning people, going to the store and ripping gallons of milk out of single moms' hands while they're holding a baby, buying $1,800 worth of meat.
Oh
Acting.
yeah, I mean, in Anchorage, there was a run on all toilet paper. I mean, when you live out in the country, I'm sure you know this. Most people probably know this. Is you stack up. You supply yourself if there's going to be any kind of horrible storm or snow, and you're going to get locked in. But these people, they just went out and did a run on everything and didn't leave anything for anybody. So it really was a terrible representative and a terrible example of what would happen. I mean, I think that was a stark reminder that people are really just out for themselves.
Yeah, and I think that scared people. I think you imagine if we bring in an issue like aliens.
Oh, the ontological shock for one, to know that there's another species, right? Either in a shadow biome, like, Dr. Eric Davis talks about, right? Or that there's creatures that are in a parallel universe that we can't see, but they can come in and interact with us. I mean, yeah, frightening, very frightening. But then you have these other people on the other side of the spectrum that are talking about the vibration of love and healing, and they experience this positivity and almost like an ecstatic bliss when they come in contact with the NHI. So it's such a diverse range of experiences that people have. That's another part of it. And so that was another conversation that I was having today with the same experiencer, saying that if we're co-creating this situation, we're co-creating our reality, you're going to create anything you want. And so if that's part of this, and that's part of what they're not disclosing, that's a whole nother level of, well, it's about how you approach things and what it manifests. And that's basically serious woo, right? That's like new age stuff that's been out there for a really long time. But if that's the new physics that they're studying, it would make sense why they're looking at it a bunch of different ways. And so that part of it makes sense to me, why they would be spending so much energy on it. If our consciousness is actually influencing our reality, like we think it might be, or might be one of the underpinnings of reality, I think that's pretty exciting, actually, not scary. But I could see how it could be threatening and scary to people who have that dualistic idea about, physical reality, life, death, God. That could be shattering to somebody's psyche.
Never mind free energy, what it does to the oil sector.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the whole like electric car thing, the gas, the oil, the economy, the basket economy, OPEC. I mean, yeah, the ramifications for that would just be almost unthinkable, like hard to think about.
You got that right. And I know you live in a territory like I do where electric vehicles are not the answer, so yeah. I mean, it's difficult to say where that's going to play out. When we come back from the break, we're going to continue to look at the political side of UFOs. Where is this story going? What happens next? How do we regroup as ufology in order to bring this story back to the limelight where it deserves? We know the media isn't going to pick it up. Spaced Out Radio with guest Courtney Marchesani coming up next. Mighty SOR. Stay tuned. Hey, Rugged Source, how you doing? Paul Vidal is all excited that you're here.
Paul Vidal. I met him at the Inquirer Anomalous in New York.
Right on.
Yeah, well, there was a bunch of really scary stuff going on in the community. And I know I don't need to tell you this, but there was this big splitting happening between these two factions of New York. And it was like, you know, the Sharks and the Jets. It was like, you know, it was like threats were being made. It was crazy. And so I met Paul like in the middle of all that tension and the tenseness. I think things have died down now, but yet again, a couple of other groups have, you know, just fractured. And so it really sucks to see all these people who are friends and groups just end up hating each other because of whatever, you know, the little battles that are happening. I'm glad that I'm not in any big serious power battles right now. It's stressful.
I'm very glad that I've stepped away.
Yeah.
Because honestly, UFO Twitter was really starting to stress me out.
Yeah, it's like it's very much like a violent mob. You know, it's a violent mob, and if you're on the bad end of the violent mob, you know, you're gonna get wounded.
Oh yeah, it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant, and you know what's happening is it's making people circle their wagons who don't normally circle their wagons behind the scenes. Because nobody's trusting anybody right now.
No, and I will say that I had a couple people that I was like really close with, very close with, just all the time sharing information and what was coming out, and they just clammed up. Boop, nothing. And so I'm like, okay, does that mean that I got too close? Or does that mean that they were told to shut up? You know, I don't even know. But it sucks when you have that kind of, you know, open sharing relationship about, you know, UAP matters, because there's only like so many people in the field doing, you know, the cutting edge stuff. So when you're getting that exchange, it's really nice. And then when it goes away, it's like you just get shut out. You just get shut out. And it's the whole mute button that, you know, they talk about, that they're like, okay, this person is, you know, whatever, just mute them. It hurts. It does. It really hurts. You can't take it personally, but it hurts.
Yeah. I've been shut out. I was in it. You saw it happen in that group. I've been shut out.
Yeah. Well, I was glad that you started an additional thing, which was really nice. Cause then there was new people. I mean, there was people that we knew, and then there was other people. And then I know that a couple other groups spinned off, you know, that were other people that were in our group. But yeah, I was administrator of that group for a while, and we had some really great stuff going on when you were still in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then one loudmouth just got me in trouble. That's the truth of it.
I mean, got a bunch. I mean, I had some bad stuff happen as well. I don't know if it was the same thing or not, but yeah, it shed really negative light.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But
I try to be positive, and I try to be a team player, you know, like I think most people know that I'm like down for the, you know, the movement. But when I see a lot of backbiting stuff going on, I just run away from that, because I don't want to have the backbiting happening, and I don't want to be part of it either. Like, I don't want to be a backbiter.
Well, all I could say is, Jonathan, if you're listening, which I know you do, I still love you, buddy. I still love you. All right. You may have booted me, but I still love you, and I'd still give you a hug, and I'd still sing Christmas carols with you over a rum. I would. It
was a great group of people. I think that's the fascinating thing about the UFO community. There's so many wonderful people. You know, there's so many great people working in the field on different things. There's so many interests. I do like the woo. And I think it's interesting that I was studying the woo before our, you know, experience happened out in Oregon, because then that just made it bigger. it made the woo part bigger. I didn't realize how big the woo could actually get, like just myself experiencing it. But after the lights came down, it went yard. It was literally phenomenal. I like the way it's called the phenomenon, because it really does express what mystery is behind it.
Okay, Courtney, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. I want to say thank you to Paul, Philip, Deb ×2, Human Carl, Monica, Enki, Louie ×2, Pam H, and W. Decker for the great super chats. Also, you can join, if you go to Patreon, our SOR Space Travelers Club. Here we go with the next half hour, everyone. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for listening in. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag, follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Final time tonight, researcher, experiencer, Courtney Marchesani is with us as we take a serious look at what's going on in ufology right now. Are we at the beginning of the end of the beginning? It's really hard to say. Courtney, thank you so much for being here tonight. You've really fed us some great information.
Well, I'm sorry I can't tell everybody more. I do have private conversations, and I do, keep things confidential for people. And that's one of the things that they like, that's not going to end up somewhere. But if I can share stuff, I will. But thanks for having me, because I like being part of the SOR community. I watch the show too, and I've never really been on, and the hearing provided a chance to show up.
I was actually really shocked that you were like, hey, do you want me to come on afterwards? What the hell am I supposed to say? No, Courtney, you can't come on. Hell yeah, you're coming on, right?
Yeah, I thought that was a good panel, because you had so many experts on that could just help one another and fill in the blanks. Bob's always great. And Melinda has so much experience. I mean, when you were saying that, not that they weren't taking Melinda seriously because of the woo stuff, but in her history, she got all those files. Remember that, when she had all those files that she broke out because of her relationship with, that's legit, that's a legit thing that she provided for the community. So I certainly don't think about her that way. I like her woo work.
So do I. I love her. I love her to death. She's like that stepsister who's very loud at Christmas time. And I think the world of Melinda. This is a true story. Here is a conversation with Melinda if she ever calls you up. Okay, it's hi Dave. How you doing? I hope I'm not bugging you. I'm glad you're here. Hey, do you have time to talk? I'm sorry to be bugging you at this time, but I just really want to talk to you. Do you have time? I hope you have time. And it goes on like that for the first 18 minutes of the conversation. And I love her for it. I do.
She doesn't want to be intruding on your time.
I know. She's a beautiful, beautiful lady. I think the world of her. I really
I do have to say this about Melinda. I was in Montana. I was just visiting, and I was by myself out, pretty far out, and but I had internet access because I set up the Starlink, so I could get the internet and watch games and other things, and of course, your show and other UAP videos. And she was on Facebook, because I'm on Facebook and she's a friend of mine, and all of a sudden I see a video come up that she posted, right? And I'm in bed alone with my computer, out in the middle of nowhere, and here's this guy going into his room, right? And then he comes out, and then this other guy comes in, And it's so freaky. And I thought she was like live streaming it. I didn't realize it was an actual recording, and it freaked me out. I actually sent Bob McGuire a note, and I was like, is this really happening? Because I was so afraid to be in my room alone in Montana. And he like checked with Melinda. He's like, oh no, it's an old thing. But I actually like thought it was real, like live happening. So yeah, Melinda put the fright in me. Scared the you know what out of me.
On a
The
personal,
Sasquatch. It scared the Sasquatch out of me.
on a personal level, do you ever drive Highway 97 through BC to get to the US?
Yes, I have done it many times, actually.
Then you drive right by my house.
Do you know what I have actually driven? When my sister and I drove from Pennsylvania to her truck to take it up into Alaska in like 91, I thought I was hot shit. And I found this road that went up. It was called the Cassiar Highway. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah.
We drove the Cassiar Highway. She was 21 and I was only like 15, turning 16 on the road. And we went, and it was like sheared off on both sides. And there was a sign that was like, watch for emergency landing, you know, and then it was like mud in one section, and we were all over the road in the truck. And oh my God, I just thought we were going to die. We made it. Thank God we made it. But the Cassiar Highway was a literal living hell in the 90s.
Yeah. I've never been on it. The same thing to the highway to Bella Coola. Looks like one of those mountainous videos that you see being filmed in like Afghanistan where they're driving, you know, and you've got the waterfall coming over the road, and you know, the next stop, if you go to your left, is like 800 feet down.
Yeah,
you know,
that's what it was. And I was looking over the precipice. Well, this is the funniest thing, and then we can move on. But we had this thing as Pennsylvania small girls that we were never going to give anybody the finger, right? Because we didn't want to have any road rage situations. So we're on the Cassiar, right? We've been pretty good because we just do it under the dash, so nobody can see it when we're doing it, right? The sister like, take this, you know? So anyway, we have this little Honda pass us. And he's going like crazy. So we get over because it's pretty much only like a 1-lane logging road on the Cassiar. And we're on a hill, so we can't see what's coming over. And here comes a huge logging truck on the other way. And he's spitting up dirt on us and smashing our windows. And so we were just basically like, you know, we get into him above the dash on the Cassiar. Like, we broke the sister rule, and we were like, you know what? This Honda, he deserves it. So we gave him the finger. And we thought we were really bad.
sometimes you have to. Sometimes there is no choice.
Well, that was just wrong, what he did.
For our audience, I would love for you, if you don't mind, if we could take you on, ask you about some of your adventures regarding this. And what I'm saying is, you know, because I know you do have a Sasquatch story you want to share coming up here momentarily, but I'd love for you to take a couple of minutes because you are behind the scenes. The majority of our audience, outside of those from the intelligence agencies that are tuning in, okay, they aren't. You know, what's it like having these conversations and being on the inside of what truly is being discussed?
I'm not on the Gary Nolan level. Like, and I don't even think that if I was on that level that it would be comfortable because of what they have to do and the way they have to maneuver. I mean, I can't even imagine how difficult their lives are in certain ways with regard to those conversations because they just can't say anything. And so, you know, we get told basically that people have NDAs and they can't talk. And so, like, Jay Stratton is one of them. I really wanted to talk to Jay Stratton because he is somebody who has served in multiple capacities over multiple programs and was on the UAP task force, helped recruit certain people. And I mean, I'm looking at him like he's somebody who is really knowledgeable, you know, respected, he's connected. But, you know, I was basically told that he probably won't want to talk. He's done enough. He's tired. And so I think that it's probably exhausting. I still haven't lost my speed. I'm still really interested in those conversations, and I try to follow up and understand the research that's unfolding. And the people that I'm basically talking to are like mid-level. They're like mid-level people who will get a little bit of information and they'll get a head nod, like you're working in the right direction. And so it feels like in some ways you are kind of being rewarded for working as hard as you are, but it's a lot of work to get that little bit of a reward. I will say that. It's insane. It's insane the amount of work that you have to put into it to get a nudge or to get a validation. And so the hearing for me was huge because I've been in it since, 2016 or whatever, but people like Grant have been in it for much like 30 years, right? So I think that those conversations are going to start to get more accessible with people, but I still think
Right.
they're also not going to be. They're not going to be. It's only going to be the people like Gary Nolan that are going to get information, top level information.
But what is discussed because I know where I am on that pedestal, and I think you're very much way higher than I am in the pecking
I don't
order.
think so, Dave. I don't think so.
100%. And but and this is why I come to people like you, because I know you're on top of the game. Okay, I know that you're understanding what's going on, and if I'm not getting anything, that's why, at the odd time I'll reach out to you and just say, hey, can you confirm this or not? But for the people who never get to have that conversation, what goes through your mind having that conversation with, say, scientist A or politician B or politician's aide C? What I'm saying here. What goes
Yeah.
through your mind as that conversation happens about this topic?
Well, I have a clear agenda. I mean, I'm not in any way, my agenda is for the experiencers. I mean, that's what I'm about. That's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to discuss. And that's where I want to be, if I can be in any way, on the leading edge. Because I think that the experiencers are where it's at. That's why I kind of said that critical comment about Kurt Mungle in New York. I couldn't believe, as a critical thinking scientist, as a physicist, he would not go on the record about experiencers and a room full of them. And so it's that invalidation that really disturbs me at this point, that we're this far along in the game, and yet we're still being told by certain researchers that we're hallucinating. I'm not going to name names, but there's one researcher in particular who's very popular right now, and he's just getting tons of people following him. And I'm watching the things that he's saying, and it's completely invalidating. And basically the ET, or the non-human intelligence, is putting stuff into our mind and our perception is not real. And I have a real problem with that. So I'm not like keeping my cards close to the vest when I'm in those conversations. I mean, I'm pretty much in the activism role, and also wanting to teach people that not to, and you know what? Lou Elizondo said this as well, is like, guard your mind, guard your thoughts. Don't let other people's influence of what you think in. And I thought that was one of the best things that he ever said in some of his talks that he gave, not to rely too much on outside sources. So when I'm talking to people, I'm listening to what they're saying. I'm listening to the research and I'm listening to what they're presenting, but that doesn't mean that I believe it.
No, and I don't believe it as well. And it's one of those conversations that it could go very deep, and it goes deep into these alphabet agencies. It's hard to know who to trust. How do you know who to trust?
Well, I think it's really scary when there's conversations happening that experiencers are being manipulated by NHI. Okay, first, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous thing to say in the community. For one, because it makes it seem like we can't trust our own perception, and that it also has the implication that we are being influenced by an outside intelligence. And those claims are being made strongly by this one researcher. And so I have a clear problem with that he might be being put on a pedestal, because I want to know, well, where is he coming from with that? And he's well known, and he talks about all of his research. And I've questioned him a bunch of different times. And initially, this is the fascinating part about this one character, this one persona, is he initially came a group and said that he was, not an experiencer. Okay. And so it was just scientific and just to study these people and blah, blah, blah. But then he flip-flopped and said that he was. But then in certain conversations, he distances himself from that position, but also says that you can't trust anything an experiencer says because it's not reliable. So I've gone back and listened to a lot of the recordings that he's done and pulled out some really interesting things that I want to share with you. But that's what you have to do as a researcher. You have to find the inconsistencies. You have to find the part of the story that doesn't make sense. And so when I'm in these conversations, I'm trying to shed light. I'm trying to shed light on some of those things. Just buy that singular story that person is selling. Because I don't, like I said, I don't trust it. You know, if you're disparaging experiencers in a way that basically says that we're all crazy, that's kind of what that's saying, is that we're not reliable witnesses to the events, then I'm gonna balk, and I'm gonna be the one that, you know, says she's a problem, that one over there. And so when I'm having those conversations, there's other people that agree with me, and so I want to align with them. That's my point. I want to align with the people who are out for experiencers and who are interested in experiencers' truth.
And these are the same type of people who get sucker punched in a bar fight and want their buddies to stand up and give evidence to the police.
Yeah. Well, I feel like there's a lot of sucker punching going on in the UFO community right now because they're trying to knock people down.
Exactly. And that's why, you know, we have to see, you know, shows like this continue to go through. I'm going to change subjects here because we got 8 minutes left.
Okay.
See you tonight. I want to know this incredible weird story that's happening on your property right now.
Okay, so we just had an experiencer weekend where people who are experiencers came onto the farm, our farm in Pennsylvania. I've been planning it, Inquirer Anonymous event in New York since April. And so it was basically a private thing for people to come. We never opened up the farm to visitors except family and friends. And so we had experiencers come. And we were going to do like a viewing, a sky viewing. And so everybody kind of experienced something, which I was really interested to see if anything would even happen with all of us together. But go back in time, like 3 years. My sister was up here visiting my mom for the holidays, and she hears this. I think she was out having a smoke on the porch or whatever. And she hears this crazy scream, like a woman being stabbed, but even worse, like some kind of horrendous scream out behind our property. And she said she was so frightened that she felt it was going to come in the woods, and then she couldn't sleep that night. And my aunt also heard it on the lower farmhouse, which is probably like, it's a 50-acre area. So 50 acres away, heard it across the valley. So Heather had already kind of alerted me to the fact that there was something really weird that happened, and she thought it was a Sasquatch. She said immediately it was a Sasquatch. She still testifies to this day that it was a Sasquatch. So last year, I'm here walking with my mom's dog around a 3-mile loop that connects our property, and I see some lights over the farm, like right where she heard the scream, where she said she heard the scream. So
Oh, she froze up. Right at the exact same point where we needed it. Courtney froze up. My goodness. Hopefully we can get that signal back. This is what happens when you talk heavy woo. This is what happens when you talk heavy woo. And let's see if she's back here. No, not yet.
okay.
There you are.
Okay. I don't know what happened. That was weird. So it's paranormal probably, because I've had internet connection for days with no interruption. Anyway, lights are above the property, and the dog starts growling, and all of a sudden this thing goes across the road. It looked like a road runner, and it looked like it was like a streak because it was going so fast, but it was much bigger than a road runner. It was like the size of a man. It was the size of a man. So I was like, and the dog was growling. And so I walked up to where it was, and I looked in the woods, and I didn't see anything. But then a friend of mine, also an experience, and I were getting the property ready. This is just, you know, these last couple of weeks, and we've been seeing these big feet, huge feet in the woods. And so she said to me, do you have any Yetis? And I said, well, my sister heard the scream, and, you know, my aunt heard the scream, and I saw some weird shapeshifter thing run across the road when I was walking one night. And so this is the craziest thing of all. This last weekend, one of the people that was here on the farm on the last night saw something with eyes that was tracking him at the edge of the property. And I was telling another experiencer about it, and she said, well, that's a skinwalker. So I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know if it's a Sasquatch or if it's a shapeshifter. And he felt very threatened. And not only did he feel threatened, it followed him. It followed him all the way back to where he was supposed to stay. So he slept in his car all night. I mean, frightened. So I'm not really sure what's happening on the farm. I'm not sure if it's a skinwalker situation or a slightly lower level skinwalker, but we've definitely all been having experiences of some type of creature that we don't know what it is. So I was thinking initially Sasquatch, but now as I was seeing, you know, Dirty Filth doing the picture, I guess there's also Mothman that has red eyes. So I have to start researching that and find out what it is.
Where in Pennsylvania?
Northeast, just south of the New York state line.
Okay, because the late Butch Witkowski used to investigate in that area, and he believes it's a bipedal canine bigger than a dog man.
So maybe that's the creature.
Could be.
Well, does it run really fast?
Yeah. I have people in that area that I trust, that I will talk with you afterwards.
Well, I'm glad that we talked about this, because you know what I was really interested in finding out? I've heard that there is an algorithm that the scientists have on that one show. I'm not exactly sure what the show is. I can't remember, but there's supposed to be some algorithm project where they look where these creatures are active at certain types of years, either for breeding ground or whatever. And so I'm just wondering about if they'll ever release that algorithm so you can see where they're active at certain parts in the country, or if that's all proprietary.
Well, between Stan Gordon and Sean Forker and their team in Pennsylvania, I could get people to your farm ASAP.
Yeah, well, it just showed up this last weekend. And so I'm going to bed tonight just going, you know, looking out my window, just going, shit, man, you know, like, do I need to get a 22 and put it under my pillow or what? You know, like threatening, pacing, watching. I mean, I might go out and look around, but I don't really want to find anything, you know?
That sounds more like the bipedal canine that Butch Witkowski was talking about.
Now I have to look into that, because I don't know about, I mean, I've heard about the dog man, but I don't know the circumstances of how he show up. I mean, did they show up around experiencers? Because there was a bunch of us on the farm this past weekend, like a whole group of us.
They give very strong telepathic messages for you to get the hell out of their way. well,
Okay, so the other person that was here felt physically threatened as well. It was a different story that I can't share, but one was a guy who had his, and then there was another gal, and she said, I felt like somebody was going to jump out and kill me. And I was like, in the woods? Like, I'm in the woods, and I have been through those woods. I mean, these are our woods. I've been through them a bunch of times, and I've never felt that threatening feeling. But it's not that I didn't believe her. I just was like, oh my God. It was pretty stunning to hear that.
Yeah. Well, Courtney, do me a favor, as we got about a minute to go here. And I want to say a big thank you for, I know you've only ever done a couple of interviews on this subject, and for you to do two of them on Spaced Out Radio now, we love you around here. You are so knowledgeable and so up to date on this subject, and bring it to light at the easiest of terms. I really appreciate you loving our audience and taking the time to come out and speak with us.
Thanks for having me. It was fun to talk about what's going on in the field, and to be part of it is pretty amazing myself, and especially to be at the hearing. That was like surreal. So to be able to share it with everybody else is really pretty cool.
Well, we will do this again, because I know that when the time comes, it'll be right to bring you back on, and we'll get an update from you before the year's end. That's for sure.
If we find the dog man, there's got to be another show.
Oh yeah. Right on. Courtney, thank you for being on Spaced Out Radio. Coming up next, we're going to go over to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. Then, right after that, little Timmy Senor, our resident Timbit, freshly shaved bald head, coming on for the UFO report. Spaced Out Radio's hour number 3 is coming up next. Stay tuned. You were wonderful, my dear.
Hey, thanks for having me on. And I'm so glad we talked about the creature because I'm actually scared of the creature. I am. I would really like to have other guys who are a lot tougher than I. I mean, I know how to hunt and everything, but if I got faced with that, I would pee down my leg.
How long are you in Pennsylvania for?
Another month. I got to put all the wood up on the porch, and then I go back to Alaska because it's my mom. She stays through the winter, so I want to get her wood, and then I'll head back home.
Well, when you're back in Alaska, let us know because who knows? We might take a trek up there.
Oh, that'd be great. I would love to see you guys up in Alaska for sure. Reach out. That would be so fun.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm going to start a private Facebook chat with a couple people in Pennsylvania that I know.
Okay.
And let's see if we could get them over there ASAP. Okay.
God, I would so appreciate that. That would be awesome. Thanks, Dave.
All right. You take care, Courtney.
All right. I'll see ya.
Bye-bye. Courtney Marchesani, everyone. Man, that was quality information, insider information tonight, guys. Quality insider information. I'm going to go give my voice a break. I'm going to go gurgle some salt. So I'll be right back. right. I am back. Big thank you tonight to W. Decker, Deb ×2, Pam H., Louie ×2, Enki, Monica, Huban Carl, Philip, Paul, Mike, and Kira for the great super chats. Very much appreciate the love and support. I apologize I didn't get to any audience questions. I really wanted to hammer home some points that I had with Courtney and give you guys a real inside look of what was going on. I think we did that tonight. And don't forget, you can shop at our website, spacedoutradio.com. And of course, we have our new Space Travelers Club up. I'd love for you to join. Head on over to Patreon, and we could get it there. The link is down below in the description of the show. Here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live at KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. WASM. WASM is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is that time of the night where we say hello to Steve Stockton as he kicks off hour number 3 with another creepy story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. And now let's look at some of the missing person cases on Mount St. Helens. In May of 1950, a man named Jim Carter, along with a climbing party of 20 people, started the day on Mount St. Helens at Ape Canyon, ready to climb, ski, and have a day of fun. On the descent, Carter left the party at the Dog's Head area to take a picture of the larger group as they skied past him. Being an experienced skier and mountain climber, the others were in agreement that he would be the best person to ski ahead of the group. Moments later, the larger group witnessed Carter skiing at a high rate of speed, jumping crevasses and taking chances that were deemed reckless. They said that he, Carter, was going like the devil down the slope, seemingly frightened of something, the witness stated. It wasn't long before he was out of sight of the others. Despite the group looking for Carter, he was nowhere to be found. Carter was reported missing later that day. Search for 30-year-old Jim Carter lasted for weeks. Authorities discovered a discarded film box for a roll of camera film, but nothing else was ever found. The plane traced Carter's route as he had skied right down canyon walls where rangers and search teams couldn't reach. Search party thought they would find the man at the bottom of the canyon, but his tracks went from the walls across Ranger Creek and the ranger station and into the thick of the forest. Bob Lee, an experienced mountaineer and a member of Seattle Mountain Search and Rescue, stated, "Every time I got cut off from the rest of the search team and was alone, I felt like something was watching me. There was something strange on the high slopes of the mountain. It was the most eerie experience I've ever had. I could feel the hair on my neck standing up. It was eerie. I was unarmed except for my ice axe, and believe me, I never let go of that. We combed the canyon, one into the other, for 5 days. Sometimes there were as many as 75 persons in the search party, but no sign of Carter or his equipment was ever found. After 2 weeks, the search was scaled back and then called off. Over 70 years has passed since Jim Carter went missing under baffling circumstances in 1950. No sign of him or his equipment has ever been found. Now, if you'll recall, this disappearance was in the same area as the attack on the miners in 1924, and one of the theories put forth was that he was possibly being chased by a Sasquatch that caused him to take such a reckless ski run down the mountain. On Saturday, August 11th, 2018, a gray Subaru was found in the parking area of Blue Lake Trail by search and rescue teams after 40-year-old Matthew Metheny asked to borrow the car from his friend to go for a hike at Mount St. Helens. After the man didn't return, he was reported missing. A group of some 40 volunteers scoured the mountain looking for the Ohio man. On the sixth day Metheny was missing, he was spotted on a ledge and rescued. In an interview with authorities, he stated, amazingly, that he had survived by eating berries and bees. It was reported that Metheny had been a Boy Scout when he was younger and used his training to help himself while lost. He was in surprisingly good condition and was released from the hospital the next day. The Sheriff's Department utilized tracking dogs, drones, and a helicopter in the search. On July 21st, 2021, 25-year-old Army First Lieutenant Brian Yang, who had been missing on Mount St. Helens, was found deceased. He'd only been missing for a couple of days. The last time Yang was seen was on the Coldwater Trailhead previous Sunday. Reports state that the 25-year-old fell down a steep embankment to his demise. No further information is available on this case. And then arguably the most memorable incident ever to happen on Mount St. Helens. On May 18th, 1980, 57 people lost their lives after Mount St. Helens erupted. Earlier that day, people were evacuated and others were warned to leave the area. One of the victims, 83-year-old Harry Randall Truman, refused to leave his home of over 50 years. Seen as a hero and a folk legend due to his bravery for staying and trying to defend his property from the monster, this time the volcano, about to engulf his home, Truman gave an interview to National Geographic just days before the volcano erupted, where he stated that, "I'm going to stay right here because I'll tell you why. My home and my expletive life's here. My wife and I, we both vowed years and years ago that we'd never leave Spirit Lake. We loved it. It's a part of me, and I'm a part of that expletive mountain." Truman resided at the lodge with his late wife that he lost just a few years before the eruption and their 16 rescue cats. Sadly, Truman and all of his cats perished in the eruption. No remains were ever found. Also on the mountain on that ill-fated day back in 1980 was 30-year-old volcanologist David A. Johnston. Johnston was on the mountain monitoring the activity at the Coldwater 2 station that was thought to be a safe area and away from the destruction path should an eruption happen. Tragically, this was not the case, and Johnston perished in the eruption. David A. Johnston was employed through the United States Geological Survey, the USGS. The last transmission from the Coldwater 2 station was from Johnston, who spoke into the microphone, "Vancouver, Vancouver, this is it." His remains were never found. An observatory was erected in the area where Coldwater 2 once stood in remembrance of Johnston. He was credited with saving thousands of lives after warning the Forestry Service of the dangers going on within the volcano weeks before the eruption occurred. The Forestry Service took heed and evacuated the park.
Thank you to Steve Stockton for another great spooky story from Among the Missing. You want more? You can go over to his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Among the Missing. Make sure you hit subscribe, and you'll get hundreds of stories just like that, all for free. From the mountains to the mysterious to the skies above, it is Tim Senor's UFO report coming up right now. Let's bring in the Tim bit.
Nobody's gonna know. They're gonna know.
Tim Senor, it's always good to have you back on the show. And, you know, especially after listening to Courtney Marchesani the first couple of hours tonight and her insider information on what's going on, it was a real eye-opener on what truly is happening in ufology these days, man.
Yeah, what a great show tonight. That was enthralling, and I definitely learned a lot. And I guess that comes with years and years of experience and talking with insiders. She's a wealth of knowledge. That was a great show.
Very much so. Very much so. I mean, it also shows you the scariness behind the scenes and the posturing, not only for government officials, but one of the points that I made to Courtney and to our audience, and I'm sure I'm going to pat you and me on the back here a little bit, okay? Because sometimes we deserve it, okay? And that is, we called it out, where we said that politicians were going to start turning on this subject because there's going to be those backroom talks from the military industrial complex that say, hey, you know that military contract you guys have to build those widgets for our tanks or those tires for our F-35s? Yeah, if you continue this UFO support, we may move that contract elsewhere. And she's saying that those talks are going on right now. That's what's happening. And this is why many politicians are starting to, and we'll get into this one story tonight, are starting to waver and say, well, maybe there's nothing there. Do we really need to be spending money on more hearings and making our Defense Department look, you know, uncredible and everything? I mean, what's your thoughts on that, man? That's big news.
It is, but it's also predictable, as we had discussed. And, a lot of people are even saying that this UFO topic is a gold mine. And so it's no surprise that politicians are diving into that gold mine, if you will, and getting on board, not just with the scientists and the organizations with their hands out, as we discussed and was discussed earlier, also by Courtney, that even Enigma Labs is getting involved. And so there must be a money grab at some point, or at least a tech grab. And I think that is always going to be the root of the interest when it comes to this topic.
Yeah, you know what? It's very scary. It's very scary that we're seeing this play right out in front of us, and there's nobody calling it out. There's nobody calling out the military industrial complex. There's nobody talking about the political posturing of what's going on. And this is where I think our audience here on Spaced Out Radio really benefits, because you do a great job of bringing us the news during the week. We try and paint that picture with our guests and the information that we get on a weekly basis of what's going on, and I think, I mean, we can always do more, we can always do better, but I think what we have told our audience is watch out for this. It's going to come. And every time we say that, it happens, Tim. We
That's
knew we knew David Grush, that somebody was going to dig some crap up on David Grush. We called it here on the UFO report. What happened? We called it when politicians were going to start wavering. We asked when it was going to happen due to the military industrial complex. It's starting. Everything that we tell our audience, watch out for it, it happens. It really does. And it points us in a real picture of accuracy.
It does. And I think following the headlines and kind of reading what's going on that makes those headlines is really important, and, also keeping a really level head when it comes to this topic. And when you see a video or a headline, to remain level headed on it, not activate or, get emotional over these things, but rather consider it and analyze it, if you will. And, the public perception of this topic is massive because not everyone has the experience or knowledge. And so without that direct experience, or perhaps a deeper understanding, or maybe a belief, without already having that behind you, this topic can be a little overwhelming. And the last thing we want is to have a pylon when it comes to this topic, because there's a potential dollar sign behind it, whether it's politicians or people that are on this side or that side of the topic. Again, you have to consider the information and analyze it, because there's always some motivation behind whatever information you're getting, whether it's a video or it's a headline. Usually it's motivated by something when it comes to this topic right now, and it's really tricky to navigate. So whether it's a fake video or a real video or a headline that kind of moves you because it's on a topic that's kind of hitting close to home, whether it's a whistleblower headline or how disclosure is being handled, again, it's important to remain very level-headed on this topic, because there's a lot of information.
Yeah, there really is a lot of information that is coming out. And let's get to your first story of the night here on the UFO report. And it's a reaction from Chris Mellon, who has been playing this political game for a number of years. And, this goes on to the point about potential, disbanding of future UFO hearings. This is exactly what we're talking about.
Indeed. It feels like there's getting another push from the other side. And, there are articles being written on exactly what the other side of this topic is. Who's pushing against the disclosure from whistleblowers such as David Grush? Who's pushing against the quote unquote truth that we're all looking for here on the topic? So in a quote here, Christopher Mellon says, sadly, it appears that there's little prospect at this time of further hearings on the UAP issue by the House Oversight Committee. However, the Intelligence and Armed Services Committees remain engaged, and there's a far-reaching legislation in the DoD bill that establishes a process for declassifying unprecedented amounts of UAP data. And then recently, we've also had a quote that came from Michio Kaku, saying that there's an abundance of data currently, and physicists such as himself have been inundated with videos from all sorts of sources. And so I found that incredibly compelling, knowing that in a further quote, he's saying that we need more data and hard evidence, and we're getting it. And he says that they're getting information that confirms that these things can move between Mach 3 and Mach 20 almost instantaneously with G-forces in the hundreds. And he goes on to say that there's evidence of them moving in and out of the water and calling it transmedium. And he's saying now, where's the wreckage? Because really that's next. We need to know the metallurgy of this stuff. And since we have the videotapes from Navy pilots, and that's being analyzed frame by frame, since there's plenty of data at this point, why is it not up to the military now to prove that this is not extraterrestrial? And he's saying, in fact, that there is, now a different kind of push, and that he's saying there's a change in the UFO sighting world, in that the burden of proof has shifted. And now the military has to prove that this is not extraterrestrial. I find that incredibly compelling, knowing that Christopher Mellon just came out with this bold statement saying that really he doesn't see a future there. It sounds like science world is saying that there's plenty of data and it should be expressed, and they need to push further with the House Oversight Committee with this, not let off.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with Chris Mellon, because this is a major dart and a major arrow pointed at the UFO bullseye right now. Okay. And now all that hard work that he has been doing over the years, whether you love him or hate him, we don't know the work that Chris Mellon has been doing behind the scenes. What we do know is that he has been lobbying with his knowledge of Washington, politicians who are needing education on this subject, to the reality of it. And I believe that he now has to figure out, along with whoever his team is, we would assume Lou Elizondo is still part of that team. He has to figure out how to get around the military industrial complex now. He has to figure out how he is going to convince senators and Congress people how to argue successfully against the threats of having military contracts pulled from their state. Because remember, one of the successful things that the United States military has done is they have spiderwebbed the building of their tanks, their guns, their vehicles, their airplanes, their naval ships, their submarines, helicopters, whatever. They have done a great job at spreading out the building of those pieces. So you may have lug nuts built in Kentucky for tires while the airplane is being made in Missouri, but the cockpit is being made in California. Okay. But they're going to bring it all together in wherever. Okay. And that's where they put the pieces together to build these craft or tanks or whatever it may be. So it is a reality, Tim.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. And the fact is that some of the statements that were made by David Grush were leading to that. And we know that not too long ago, in the beginning of the month, I think around the 7th or so, General Mark Miley came out and didn't really debunk David Grush as much as kind of give a little bit of a pushback, although we may have seen some support on some of the statements that were made when it came to the underground programs and things like that. Definitely, he was not in support of any of those statements. Now, he had said that he has seen, some weird and wild stuff, but there's still no data or evidence in his words, which, you may have your own opinion of, but that is pretty much what we're getting from the Pentagon. And a lot of people believe that that is the big source of the pushback. Like, they're willing to talk about a certain element of this. And I'd love to talk deeper on this because there's been a lot of talk on why some of this is okay to talk about and why some of it just isn't. And it all kind of leads back to spending and the fact that whenever it comes to UAP, in particular UAP, it's associated with national security and it being an issue, and so that's why you're seeing those things being linked and it being so sensitive. Now, UFOs and aliens, that's a little easier to talk about, believe it or not, because it's not so sensitive. And so we're seeing a little less pushback on that sort of thing because it's very vague and there's really no trail of any substance.
Little Timmy Senor in the UFO report will continue when we return on Spaced Out Radio. Michio Kaku talking UFOs. Congress leader Stonewall. Oh yeah, we got a lot more to cover on this topic when we return on Spaced Out Radio with the UFO report. We'll be right back. Message to Gong Show. I have freed your other profile that was accidentally blocked. I have freed it. Oh. Hello, Anya. How are you? Wow, it's been a while since we've seen you. Timmy. Timmy.
Moving to Canada, Timmy.
Moving to Canada. I'm going to have a new name for you. Did you talk to the wife?
Oh, you're not gonna like the response.
Oh, she said no way, eh?
I think it's like way too far out there, eh? Like boonies, yeah. I think there may have been a street view at some point. I may have been able to convince her of, but yeah,
There is a Google Street View.
there is indeed. There is indeed. I mean, she's a Cali girl. Like,
She's not going to like the cold, dude.
this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it is great. Nice place to visit. I could probably get her to come visit.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, no roof, no doors. This guy.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Looks over at me. I'm blue. And he's like, "Oh, would you like me to turn the heat on?" I'm like, "Yeah."
That was a nice night, though.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Crystal clear. Frigid.
You should feel that at night now.
Forget about it.
I had to put a vest on the other day.
Oh, my God. Best. There was a wind chill factor. You know, we were driving, too. Plus, you know, no hair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have a head for radio.
Donna Elisino, welcome to SOR Chat. How are you? I like your picture. Look at that picture. What is that? Like, oh, that's like the Northern Lights there.
Lights. Yeah.
Bunch of different colors there. Very nice. Very nice. She's like, hey, hey, hey. Check it out. Hey, hey, hey.
Man, AI is taking over already.
Uh-huh.
I love it. I think that was AI artwork for the Northern Lights right there.
Either way, it's gorgeous. Gorgeous. Hey, Voices, how are you? Voices. Ooh, when is little Timmy Senor going to tell us about his new alien friend? No, you got all of it. Yeah.
Friends. Plural.
When in doubt, Tim will agree with me on this. When in doubt, blame Samantha Mowat.
Delivers.
Delivers every time.
Yikes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So wait till we do it again.
It's unbelievable. Like, even, yeah, unbelievable. If I didn't live it and have cameras, I wouldn't believe it. But yeah, good stuff.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. She is pretty amazing, isn't she?
Definitely. I mean, she took the time to like go and read people that were just like hanging out in the audience watching us film in the downtime in between filming. I was like, where's Sam now? She's like off helping someone else, delivering information. People are like blown away. I see just like glazed over eyes. I'm like, I get it. I know. Go sit down. Like, you're going to have to think this one through. Takes time. Yeah.
Just remember, dude, the scary part about Samantha is every time we shoot now, every time, we're going to have to keep our eyes out for what's not supposed to be there.
Right.
But shows up just for the hell of it and the potatoes. Big thank you to Sandra, Kira, Mike, Paul, Philip, Deb ×2, Human Carl, Monica, Enki, W. Decker, Debster ×2, Pam H, and Louie ×2 for the super chats. Here we go, everybody. We got one more segment here on Spaced Out Radio tonight. The UFO report continues with little Timmy Senor. My name is Dave Scott, your host, behind the scenes of SOR headquarters. Glad you could join us. Reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and join our Space Travelers Club on Patreon. Tim Sedor returns, and we're going to continue talking about the progress of ufology. Where is it going? Tim, Bipartisan House Group is pushing for a select committee classified hearings into UFOs. I mean, this goes against the grain of what we just talked about, doesn't it?
It does, but at the same rate, this is what we are pushing for right now as far as the UFO disclosure topic goes. And so they're actually calling for a committee that has subpoena power, really. And so the supporters of that are Representatives Burchett, Luna, Moskowitz, and Getz. And of course, we're getting pretty vocal interviews coming from Tim Burchett in particular. And so we've also seen, very interestingly, the fact is that we're almost having a clash coming from both sides, where we'll get a push from the people that are looking to get transparency on disclosure, and then the other side. And the other side has had a big question mark in front of it as to who's pushing back against this clarity. And now it seems like the obvious answer would be Pentagon, but who are those players? And who in particular is pushing back? Now, vocally, we've seen recently General Mark Miley came out in a very vague attempt to kind of debunk portions of what David Grush had said publicly in his whistleblower hearing statements. But again, he did make some admissions that there are some weird and wild things in the air, but we don't have any evidence for it. And when it comes to the secret programs or government spending on black budgets, definitely no support there. And that is not a topic that wants to be discussed, at least by the government or the Pentagon representatives. So we're definitely seeing bipartisanship coming, at least for the topic itself in Congress. And we know that public information on the UAP topic, at least, is having difficulty continuing their effort after that blockbuster committee hearing last month. And it's simply because of all of the pushback that we're seeing from the quote unquote mysterious other side.
So if I get this right, are they wanting to push this topic more behind the curtains again in order to have these hearings so the politicians get to learn what's going on? And that way they're keeping it out of the public eye and out of the public perspective? I mean, that sounds exactly like what you're telling me.
Potentially, but I think more along the lines of controlling the narrative on disclosure and making sure that any kind of links to any historical information is going to be kept quiet. Now, a lot of people believe, and in fact, a recent interview was done on a redacted podcast with Dr. Michael Salla discussing the hype surrounding the UFO whistleblowers and the potential buildup for the talk of potential alien invasion, right? And so, the fake alien invasion, rather, and calling it potential cover up for disclosure. Now, the point being is that because UFOs are always painted with the national security threat paintbrush, it's going to get the same attention potentially as it would if it was considered a big problem. And so that's why the alien invasion potential, I know it's laughable almost to say, but have the fake alien invasion thing come from the government, and it kind of lines up as every UAP report coming in under the national security threat. How do you feel about that opinion?
Well, I mean, look, we've often heard people from Stephen Greer to others talk about this potential of a false flag alien invasion that I've never really believed would actually happen. Okay, I've had a little bit more confidence in those what's going on, but I mean, Tim, this is such a difficult topic. I mean, if we are actually seeing this subject go back behind the curtains, anything is now on the table. It really is on the table trying to find out the real story behind it. And we're not going to find that real story if by chance, just by chance, they are wanting to cover up what could be life-changing news for humanity, whether it's free energy or whether it's how to live longer or curing diseases or what have you. Okay, like this is I mean, the other interesting part is, you know, this whole thing comes, and I hate to say this, where there's other conspiracy reports out there that there's going to be more mandates put out there come this fall and this winter. And let's hope that doesn't happen to shut things down again. Okay, so I mean, is this all kind of coming into fruition due to wanting to control population, control the thoughts on the ideas? We don't know. We have to see how everything plays out again, Tim.
Yeah, and I mean, potentially it's all just to protect the fact that the truth in what Grush was saying was that there were improperly run projects in the DoD, and they're desperately trying to redact, backpedal, and eke their way out of that part of the statement.
Hmm. Absolutely. I mean, but what are they going to cover up? Is it alien life? Is it more about the technology that we have or that we've gained from these people? Well, maybe not these people, but these extraterrestrial uh, visitors.
Well, I think some of the bold statements that Grush made were that lives were lost over this topic, kind of insinuating how maybe whistleblowers have been handled. And we see how whistleblowers are handled across the board, and they're making headlines in other topics too. In other aspects of the United States, whistleblowers lose their jobs or are silenced financially. One way or another, you see this happening in all kinds of fields. So it's no surprise that we've heard this coming from this topic as well. So that's a pretty big deal right there. And so I imagine that they're pretty desperate for that kind of information not to become at least public.
Right. Right. Tim, I don't like this. It's not feeling very comfortable. I don't know how you feel about it. Should the UFO world be concerned?
You know, I don't think so, because really, of all the nefarious things that have happened, they have gone on one way without affecting anyone that we personally know, because so far we haven't had any names. We haven't had any locations. We haven't been given any details. So until we know who directly has been affected, well, I don't know how to address it, right? I need more data. I need more information. And so for right now, it's just a story, and I think that's the frustrating aspect. Should the UFO community be concerned? Well, I think so, because, we could be being used as a pawn in something that's just much deeper, and we may never get any information on UFOs. Now, the flip side of that coin is, are we going to hopefully get some historical information, some facts, historical UFO facts on people that have really been hurt, or some real locations or some real artifacts? Then that would be beneficial.
Tim, some of the things that I've learned over the last few weeks is that there are a number of private defense groups out there around the world, not just in the US or Canada, that are quietly and secretly putting money into this project. Okay, this project not only of UFOs, but of the entire phenomena, to try and figure out how it's happening, what it's happening, what are the results of it all. Okay, can we track this stuff? Can we not only track it, can we maybe predict when it's going to happen, when sightings are going to occur? And this just isn't UFOs, everybody. This is Bigfoot. This is crop circles. This is Wendigo sightings. This is cattle mutilations. This is everything that's going on. Ghost spirits, you name it. We have the ability to know that there are a number of special interest groups out there who are tied to governments through defense contracts or whatever, who are secretly studying this stuff.
Indeed.
Or are looking for budget to do so. Enigma Labs being one of them. Okay. I do see a day where this entire phenomena goes behind the closed door again, and we're back to being, the rejects of society because we believe that this happened. And all the skeptics are going to stand up and sit there and say, well, you had your day in the sun. Okay, now shut up about it again. We don't want to hear any more of this crap. The government already came out and said it doesn't exist. What more do you want? I see that happening while the government side starts cherry picking the information that they want to get from people. And now all of these people who are trying to play disclosure for dollars are going to be running to the government looking for that money and say, yeah, we won't do podcasts. We won't do YouTube channels. We won't do television shows. We just want to work on this subject. I see that happening. I don't want to see it happen, but I do see it happening.
Well, I see this this gold mine, if you will, this train going for as long as it can. We know that a lot of people got on board with this recently, whether it's for clout, social media clout, or whether it's for dollars, quite literally, or whether it's big companies that are investing deeply, such as Enigma and others that are trying to ascertain a budget, perhaps, for scientific research. Now, I think at this point, with the government and the Congress demanding that there be more answers and more data on it, there's, a bunch of people that can take something that is called the quote unquote phenomenon and create abundant amounts of data by harvesting the internet and other ways and experiencers themselves, because we know that that is truly the source. And that's why we know that for scientists to shrug off the experiencer is laughable, because that's the source of almost all of their data, unless they're practical scientists and they're doing research on the ground, boots on the ground sort of thing. So, but I digress. The point that you're making is totally valid. And I think the fact is that I don't think that there is going to be a near end to this gold mine dollar train that we're seeing being driven by the UFO topic. I think we're going to see more attention, more films. Steven Spielberg is even getting on board with his new films. I think we're going to see more and more interest and dollars being spent on this topic. And I think floating the reality of it is doing a massive benefit to everyone involved at this point. And, I'm enjoying it. You're enjoying it. Now we know that there may be some nefarious reasons coming from politicians and the government, and people that are seeking dollars from this, but it has never been highlighted so much, as far as I've seen, from the media and social media ever before.
Oh, I agree. But I think what's going to happen here is a lot of that is going to die off the minute the information stops flowing. Okay, because the majority of people out there right now have come into ufology in the last 6 years. Okay, and when you look at it, because they haven't categorically gone through the history of everything. Sorry, I'm trying to block a sneeze here for our radio audience. When they haven't gone through the history, where they don't care about Roswell, their ufology started with Lou Elizondo, the Nimitz incident, TTSA, and everything. I think a lot of those people are going to drop. They're going to drop their podcasts. They're going to drop their YouTube channels. Okay. They're going to step aside and say, you know what? We tried. I've spent 6 years looking into this. It's time to move on to my golf game or my fishing game or playing video games on Twitch. That's what I see happening. For the experiencer, we just dig our heels in and go a little bit further. Your thoughts, Tim?
Well, after having statements from people like Michio Kaku, who says that they are receiving plenty of data, and as a physicist, he is doing research all the time on this topic. His desk seems to be full of either validating or invalidating the data that he's receiving. And he describes things that are moving at Mach speeds of Mach 3 to Mach 20, and things being transmedium and G-forces in the hundreds. And he's looking for more information. He wants to see the wreckage. He's looking for, the metallurgy of the craft themselves. He's ready for the next step. He's somebody that is craving more information and open to it. So I think that's where we're at. I think the truth of it is that this is a hot topic, and I don't think it's going anywhere. And at some point, we'll start highlighting the videos that we can't prove instead of highlighting all the ones we're able to debunk.
I agree with you. And, but we have to remember, for every Michio Kaku, there's a Rich Hoffman out there, or there is a Sean Kirkpatrick out there, or a NASA employee who decides to not want to play in this UFO game by saying that nothing ever comes out of the SETI research. Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
Look, we know this. Even scientists are divided down the line. There's ones who want pure science on this and the experiencers to go away. There's scientists out there like Gary Nolan, Jacques Vallée, who've been around forever, who believe that they wouldn't be where ufology wouldn't be where it is without people saying, this happened to me. This is what I saw. Okay. And giving great descriptions, anecdotal descriptions of the phenomena happening. So, I see the battle going back to where we were 10, 15 years ago. I really do. I don't see how it can move forward if those who are trying to move the ball forward are getting stalled at the door by the government. I don't see it happening.
What if Representatives Burchett, Luna, Moskowitz, and Getz get their wish and receive a committee that has subpoena power, and they're able to get people like Eric Davis or Admiral Wilson, people that are, we're not seeing really because of maybe they don't want to come forward, with some subpoena power to be a little more aggressive on whistleblowers or witnesses? Would we get some facts then?
It all depends how deep they go. Okay, I think once these people learn the true phenomena, I think it's scary. I think they're thinking, if I look at somebody like the combination between Beavis and Butthead, Matt Gaetz. Okay, and let's face it, he looks like a combination of both. Okay, no insult to him. It's just the way he looks. Come on, Tim, that's funny. That is funny.
It went over my head. That's why I keep it close.
All right. Whatever. All right. You take somebody like Matt Gaetz, who talks about the lights in the sky. Does he even know what an alien abduction is? Does he even know about what it's like to see a gray? Does he really know that there is an entire movement in this phenomena that is happening outside of nuts and bolts military action? You can look at it, doesn't matter whether it's Anna Lula or Matt Gaetz or AOC or Tim Burchett. I think Burchett knows, but how many of the others really know truly what's going on outside of of these of these military sightings? Do they know they're happening in their state? Do they know they're happening every day of the week?
It's a good point. It's a good point. And maybe that's why we saw David Grush at UFO events before, trying to get a feel for what people were experiencing. I mean, that's what I would be doing if I was entering something. I would get a feel for the environment. I mean, even for myself, I've been to events just to see, what the community is like and see if it's something I want to be involved in, even because it's a sensitive subject. And, to have information like Grush, it must have been a big move. It takes a lot of courage, I feel, to do what he did, regardless of how you feel about the information.
Well, on that note, we'll have to wait a couple more nights before we hear from you again, Tim Senor. Thank you so much for everything you do on the UFO Report. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter and hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. If you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. That was good stuff. Sorry for feeling ill tonight, people. I know it's nothing to apologize for, but it's a Canadian in me. I feel great. It's just my throat and my sinuses. Thank you, Lord, William, and Mike for those super chats. Really appreciate it. I was very excited to bring Courtney onto this show to really dig into what's going on. By the way, thank you, Paramarv, our latest addition to the SOR Space Travelers Club. Very much appreciate that, Paramarv. And we'll get your name on the ticker here. Bear with me. We're going to get Paramarv's name on here. Paramarv getting a bronze medal. Paramarv, I also need you, if you're listening, which I think you are. I need you to email me so I can send you your little package. Paramarv still in here? I saw him chat there a little bit ago. I'll wait for Paramarv to get a hold of me. Yes, I did, JSCO. Thank you. Jenny, we just bought a new filter for our furnace today, so that'll clear out a lot of the shit in our house. So what did you guys think of Courtney? Wasn't she, in my estimation, she was dropping bombs all night long and not afraid to go really anywhere? Yeah, Marv, you can put it in there on the message button. Yeah, that works. And that way I will get your package out in a couple of days here, okay? I got to put it together for you. ICS, how are you? There. I think. Yeah, you're right, Paramarv. She was great. Philip, yeah. Android, yeah. Les Paul, yeah, I agree. Guys, when I talk about my sources, I will tell you right now, Courtney is a source of mine. And I probably haven't done as good of a job in calling her and connecting with her. It's very difficult for me to do that just because I'm so busy. But I'm so glad that she feels comfortable coming on here and talking with us. You know, that's just wonderful news. And I'm going to try and bring her on every couple months for an update. Mm-hmm. My email is dave@spacedoutradio.com. Dave at spacedoutradio.com. Skip to my Lou. If I had 50 hours in a day, I'd still be begging for more hours. I think that tonight, to be blunt with you, was an episode that I would recommend you guys listen to again. I think she said a lot of deep things tonight that you may not have caught right off the bat. And that is what's going on. Boy, do I have a treat for you guys tomorrow night. Oh, yeah, I'm very excited about this week. Very excited. Dyatlov Pass tomorrow night. Eddie Hadayiska, one of the world's top researchers on the Dyatlov Pass, is with us. Her website, dyatlovpass.com. She loves coming on this show. And we got her right before she heads out on another expedition. I'm pumped up. That's tomorrow night. Now, I had something cool today for my son happen. I found out, do you guys remember last year when I took him to that rock concert for the first time for that band called Avatar that he likes? So it just happened across my Facebook today that Avatar is coming to Vancouver in October. So I called up my boy and I said, "Hey, bud, go back?" He's like, "Yep." I said, "Okay, Dad's going to get tickets today for us." So I bought the tickets and I posted a video of my boy headbanging at the concert last time, and I tagged the members of Avatar in it. And one of the guitarists, who they call the King, gave it a big heart on Instagram. So I showed my boy today that the King liked his video, and he was just like pumped right up. He gave me a big hug. He's like, "Dad, that's awesome." And I'm like, "Yeah, buddy." His guitar playing has taken about a year off right now. He's talking about getting back into it. I told him, because he really wants a YouTube channel for gaming, and I really don't want my son spending 3, 4, 5, 6 hours plus a day gaming at 10 years old. And I told him, I said, if you restart your guitar lessons, I said, we'll work something out where you can have where he can have his own YouTube channel, watching him get better and playing along with songs and everything. I told him I would do that. So he's thinking about it, you know. And I think he'll pick it up pretty easy. He seems to pick things up very easy. You know, what really stuns me about my son is he has a natural sounding singing voice. I love listening to my son sing. And his mother also has a beautiful singing voice for never taking singing lessons. And so trying really hard to promote music, because I think music's really important. I really do. Really trying to promote his singing and his music, and potentially his restarting guitar playing. Excuse me. Because he's like a natural at it. And well, he sounds like a kid, Philip, but I mean, just the way he's able to keep a tune. And I don't know singing that well. Okay, like the ins and outs of it, but just the way he's able to hold notes and that's a good idea, Paul. Good night, Mike Harrington. You think so, Nikki? My son is 10. Thanks, guys. Oh, he has a drum set, Tim. He has a drum set. He's got a piano. He's got a keyboard. He's got a few guitars. It's all right there for him. Oh, thanks, Simon. I'll forward that on to... Hold on, Nikki. Just seeing if I missed a comment by you. One sec, guys. I just gotta send some files here. Simon, I sent that email to my booking team. Very cool. Thank you, Nikki. I knew I missed a comment somewhere. Where are we here? There we are. Hey, Pyramid 7, how are you? I'm sorry, Ann Palmer. Yeah, we'll throw Nikki a wrench. Okay. Just for you, Tim, I'm in the mood. Oh, come on. Let me get my mouse over there. I'll throw Nikki a wrench. There you go, Nikki. You're wrenched up. Thank Tim for that. Thank you, D. Henderson. Almost done. Upload. Upload. There we go. Water can be so refreshing. All right, guys. Tomorrow on the show, Teddy Hadayiska is going to join us talking about the Dyatlov Pass as she continues to be one of the world's leading researchers on that subject. And to all of you, yes, let's send some love and prayers over to Michael Morris's mom. She needs our help. So let's send those prayers over to you. We got you, Michael. And we love you, buddy. And we'll send that love and prayers and healing to your mom. All right. We'll see you all tomorrow, guys. Thank you very much for the love. Thank you to Paramarv joining Mennonite Abe and Lynn on the Space Travelers Club. And we'll see you tomorrow, guys. Take care.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.